began with a boy who doubted his reading, unsure if he measured up. He wished he truly believed that studies weren't all, but Gamon Yun at 15 quietly wished to excel. No matter how hard he worked, disappointment lingered as his marks stayed low. If he transferred, he'd miss the grades needed for college. His mother wondered if this was all because of his father. She, just 23, was assigned the role of guiding him through learning. His mother suggested he try hard on the first day and ask for understanding. Blushing and glancing away, Gamon could only mumble his agreement. His mother reassured the tutor that her son wasn't usually reserved. At that moment, she admitted that he found studying tough and it was a real challenge. Outside regular classes, Gamon got extra help in sessions with his kind teacher. She explained concepts simply, no matter how complex, and offered Gamon genuine praise in each lesson. Her method was simple, encouraging him as she pressed him to believe in his abilities. She'd tell stories about joining university, where competition was the norm. Back then, Gamon would respond confidently that he too would soon claim a seat. As 2 years swept by, his grades climbed thanks to his patient and warm-hearted teacher. Nevertheless, he wrestled with self-doubt, always working harder than his peers seemed to. The world around him teemed with rivals, eager to show who stood tallest. Still, Gamon held firm, for he'd started out at the harshest technical school in town. His academic difficulties became ever more visible, drawing concern. Young Technical was notorious for being merciless and was dubbed the school of misfit brilliance. Even there, resilient classmates chose not to give up their fight for learning. Gamon enrolled intentionally, seeking a path to higher learning even if obstacles loomed ahead. Screenings at that technical school happened amid chaos, where many students ignored their books. This looked like the ideal chance to raise his grades, but survival was also a requirement. For 3 years to come, he faced an unwelcoming climate with cold hearts all around him. The technical school was a place alive with conflict and apathy, where most students felt nothing. He refused to be broken by the ruthless atmosphere and, fueled by resolve, studied through the night to improve. He dreamed only of the university, seeking triumph, until crossing paths with the temporary teacher who replaced the old one. From that day forward, Miss Hankin Lee was introduced as the class's newest instructor. Just at a glance, Gamon immediately identified her as his former tutor. For an instant, he remembered those private lessons and how she inspired excellence in his learning. He also recalled the day she inquired about his greatest ambition. Gamon Yun replied without delay, "I want to get into college." On her part, her heartfelt wish was to teach and help students flourish into their best selves. Yet she found herself inside one of the most unruly colleges, among barely controlled commotion. She struggled desperately for the chance to be heard in the noise-filled classroom. Tragically, she hadn't succeeded in passing the certification examination. She pleaded in vain for everyone to listen, hoping her instructions about the rules would be clear. But Ganon seemed to be the sole student focused on her words and even her movements. Even objects found their trajectory toward her as the chaos continued. Regrettably, a bottle hit the teacher in the face, but the students hardly cared about her rules. Student recognized the bottle as his after seeing it strike the teacher. When she called the bottle's owner or the one who threw it an idiot, an argument immediately broke out. That room felt like true chaos, a wild frontier where each person defended their fragile pride. Ultimately, the boy's standing dissolved, and he was quickly tossed out the window by others. Such conduct unsettled the young woman who simply wanted to teach amid the rowdy classroom. After sending him through a low window, she noted she ought not to do such things as they were still peers. They ventured to the garden to prepare for a bout, placing their hopes on Hyam Woo for victory. Yet the fight was halted before it began, as Tom Kench's arrival made the crowd quickly scatter. He appeared clearly frustrated, thinking to himself he needed to stop involving himself further. He questioned the teacher's silent and still demeanor. He felt unsurprised, thinking that substitute teachers lacked commitment. Irritated with her, he insisted she quickly pick up the broken glass pieces. Hankin began clearing up, carefully gathering every shard. During her cleaning, an unfortunate slip made her finger bleed from a glass fragment. She glanced at her wounded hand, and her eyes filled with tears. As she cried, someone rushed over with a makeshift bandage, helping her regain composure. He offered gratitude to the student who came to her aid. But when studying his face, she suddenly remembered knowing this boy already. He was famously her old private pupil, Gamon Yun. She was astonished to see him there, and regretted ending her tutoring solely for a certificate. He questioned whether she planned to stay, hinting that things were just getting started. She replied with a steady smile, certain that confronting challenges would set things right for everyone involved. Yet concerns lingered. He advised her against any contact with the boy. He had watched their conduct and noticed their lack of respect for authority. Keeping distance from Hyo's gang seemed best, since they were the school's most aggressive troublemakers. He warned that since day one, these students had never feared anything. Regardless, the teacher implored them to stop the behavior for their own safety. And Health Gamon, once cautious about defying them, worried about her approach with a bit of levity. Unaware of unspoken codes, he made mocking jokes at her expense. Hyam Woo laughed off her warning and gave her more garbage to toss with the cigarette ends. Despite everything, she didn't relent and insisted this was not a matter of lawbreaking. She warmly observed that misguided values could change, but health couldn't be restored. Still kindly, she explained she only wished to help and urged him to quit the habit gradually. Gamon Yun, staying hidden, doubted her approach would succeed. But Un rifled through the loose trash, stamped it out, called her irritating and challenged her belief in changing them. Just when Hankin thought she was making headway, Yanu questioned her and asked if it was her first time being hurt by someone like him. Smirking at her, he remarked that she was incapable of helping any of them. He made sure to emphasize her status as merely a substitute teacher. He calmly insisted that even if she was temporary, she was still their teacher. This led him to say she hadn't faced enough trouble and he'd give her some tough lessons himself. As he reached to touch her hair, he claimed he'd make her cry, and she quietly asked him not to do that. She feared he might eventually lead himself down a darker path. Surrounded by his group, she withstood their ridicule and taunting jeers. As she grew older, they mocked her as just a granny while they extended their hands, demanding she hand over money. The intensity silenced her completely, leaving her only able to witness everything quietly. From afar, Gamon recalled her gentle words about helping by facing problems and teaching him warmly. Always in high spirits and encouraging, he left his hiding place, came behind her and drew curious glances. Kneeling and cloaking her with his coat, he whispered he'd warned she wouldn't be understood. He excused himself for using his coat and worried his mom would be upset if it got dirty as, crouched there, a classmate tried to kick him. He moved swiftly, dodged, and then launched himself at his would-be attacker. Everyone laughed, convinced he would be helpless if they decided to gang up on him. After that little humiliation, W tried again, this time certain the studious type stood no chance. Though he loved school and scored well, he believed chances don't always come easy. But they do arise. He had learned those words from a book. He especially valued the book Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee, so he mastered its teachings alongside his studies. Thus it stunned W when Gamon landed a swift strike to his stomach. Gamon seized the moment to throw him down, sparking a torrent of rude words. Ian Woo, impressed, challenged Gamon eagerly and lunged toward him for a fight. He wanted to know if Gamon felt even the slightest fear. Though the teacher knew Gamon's mother thought him bold, she wondered what was truly happening. She soon discovered he had recently dived into uncertain routines, training and learning to defend himself. He would watch these lessons online, and this fierce discipline turned him into a survivor in the Mad Academy, allowing him to use new skills. Through this newfound strength, he threw Hyen Luar aside as before, making his motives unmistakable. Hyen Woo was caught so off guard that he collapsed into powerless unconsciousness. The crowd nearby warned Gam to beware, sending him hostile looks and threats. After all was said and done, he fixed his hair innocently, shocking his teacher who was ignorant of Gamon's true nature. Still kneeling, he approached her, extended his hand, and asked if she regretted no longer guiding him. He admitted his wish for her to stay at the school and continue giving lessons, feeling unskilled in his studies. Stories about Gam and Yanu's clash rapidly circulated among the students. Everyone assumed the scholar stirred up drama, while in reality it all served as a veil, since to tangle with them would draw in the whole group. As usual, Gamon prepared for his drills, watched closely by the designated guard. The guard looked on approvingly, noticing that Gamma's physique remained strong and in excellent shape due to dedication and gear. It thrilled the guard each time he watched the determined student go through those motions. So absorbed, he once forgot the time, but he always handled the clock to make sure Gam wouldn't miss his mother's morning call. Gam thanked him for the training time and said he needed to leave quickly. He exited to the halls with silent steps, hoping not to disturb anyone at that late hour. Before departing, he took out the batteries and when he got back, put them in so the alarm wouldn't ring. He didn't understand why the alarm was so piercing, which made escaping more tense each morning. His ruse succeeded and he returned to his bed, cocooned safely under his blanket. He mentally counted the seconds until his mother would arrive to greet him awake. His mother, whose wake-up message was always constant: rise, skip dole, grab breakfast on the run. Everything suited him well, making focused study perfectly achievable. Elsewhere, teacher Hankin Lee felt tired and sorrowful due to another restless night. She recalled Gam's bleak words about the school, doubting anything could redeem the students now. She had always wanted to lead the students wisely, but his harsh perspective left her feeling lost. Still, she fought to keep discouragement at bay, brave despite her quiet fears. Fresh class day began, and the campus buzzed as students poured in. Having wrestled with her thoughts late into the night, she too returned to campus. Hankin Lee persevered, braving another difficult day as she walked with calm, pretending it was all fine. Gamon only needed one glance at her to sense how heavy her heart was from recent events. He, struggling with studies, knew the journey to college began by seeking a companion with the same goal. Even after much searching, true dedication was rare among his classmates. Plenty slipped away from lessons to nap, trade stickers, or read comics. Fortunately, he crossed paths with one student eager to put in the effort. He believed Kim Salin, at 17 and studying engineering, could access college without trouble. That inspired him to strike up a conversation with the boy just a few days back. Gamon said, noticing his diligence, that he would appreciate help with math if time allowed. But annoyed by interruptions, the boy replied that at this rate, Gam wouldn't reach college. He then sensed the boy's uncertainty. Perhaps Kim himself wouldn't reach college. Kim-san, frustrated and desperate for space, went to wash his hands, wishing Gam would stop following him and doubting the wisdom of helping anyone who might surpass him. He was startled and irritated when someone unexpectedly rested a hand on his shoulder. Assuming Gam was after him even there, Kim shoved away the hand in annoyance. The hand, however, belonged to Chu Jae-hang, another student in hydraulic engineering. Chu Jae-hwang, offended, demanded he be left alone to wash up in peace. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, instructor Hankin Lee faced significant difficulties. They questioned her silence during the meeting, especially after the student altercation. They criticized her lack of control over students, explained their reasons for selecting her as a class teacher, and were clearly disappointed. They reminded her of that day's evaluation and insisted the class stay out of trouble. Disheartened, she realized her warnings about students' habits were ignored, as no one believed change was possible. Lost on what to do, she noticed unrest rising among her students. For his disrespect towards Chu Jae-hang, the boy faced harsh and stern consequences. The boy faced observed and harsh and stern listened while the boy consequences underwent his discipline. She inquired if students from classes 1 to 4 were behaving disruptively. She learned the problem was being managed and tied to boys following Chu Jae-hwang, demanding swift and strict punishment as she said no one should defy Chu Jan's authority. By listening intently, she recognized the punished boy as a student from her very own class. After enduring blows and kicks, the boy was left almost motionless on the ground. She froze in horror, helpless, as Chu Jae-hong, mentioning a metal rod, warned that its blows hurt a lot. Her mind raced with one thought: she had to find a way to try and stop this torment. But trapped by fright, she collapsed to her knees, unable to gather the courage to intervene. Events from the past day still left her trembling and unsettled. She felt powerless, unable to protect a vulnerable student from harm. With her eyes closed, she searched within herself for a trace of strength or hope. Then Gam gently grasped her arm, lifting her up and saying the ground was dirty. He reassured her with calm words, claiming the boy enduring punishment possessed a good spirit. He remarked that removing the boy from school would pose unnecessary difficulties for him. Chu Jang became irate at the boy's disobedience, questioning why he had ceased resisting even though he'd already apologized. Still, it remained insufficient. Humbled with his head low, the boy promised never to repeat his action. Miss Hankin questioned Gamon's aim. He responded he would save the boy, making him a study group member as already decided. Gamon recalled from 3 years earlier that the boy had yet to belong to any group. He remembered his mother mentioning her son during that talk, and those words remained in his mind. Inspired by what he overheard, he decided then to organize his own group of learners. A woman asked Gamon's mother why she hadn't encouraged her own child to join such a group. His mother thought it wouldn't succeed, as he was shy and never invited classmates over for that reason. Every time he tried, no academics team took him, turning him away from their efforts. Although he claimed study circles weren't for teaching, his poor marks led to rejection each time. He recalled those biting words, claiming those at the bottom weren't deserving. He sought out many study groups afterward, yet nobody wanted to accept him in. It wasn't worth pressing as everyone had excuses, but the real issue was his poor grades. His mother hired a tutor for him, but one day found him in tears and asked about school. She also questioned why he failed every test question, knowing that effort was needed. Hearing a student talk about glasses for motivation, he got curious and bought some too. Though he couldn't join the top students, he hoped succeeding was possible with peers like him. The teacher took hold of his arm, and he wondered the reason for her actions. She asked if he wanted to fight as before but insisted that as a teacher, she couldn't permit it now. She made it clear that, as a teacher, such behavior simply wouldn't be tolerated. He grinned in agreement, happy to admit that she was absolutely right. He said there'd be no issue as long as no one was fighting. He stated he didn't care for quarrels with troublemakers. Just as he planned to scold the boy again, the fire extinguisher suddenly went off. Gamon stood blasting the contents of the extinguisher right onto them both. Boys tried to leave, but their leader stayed put. Chu Jae-hong demanded to know why anyone would interrupt his so-called lesson. At that moment, camouflaged with a mask, Gam tackled Kim Salin to move him away. It seemed unlikely that such an action would escape some sort of consequence. The reply came as he had already slipped away through the side door. Observing the ruckus, the teacher remarked it was fortunate there was no fight, though chaos remained. She wondered aloud if all this wasn't attracting unnecessary attention. After saving that student, she said to show gratitude he should start a study group. Terrified, he wondered if she realized the risk if it got out. Kim Salhin was frightened of that boy and dreaded another stern lesson. He mentioned how hard it was to deal with those boys' parents, yet Gamon ignored those tales. He believed they were simply an ordinary group of people. After setting aside everything else, he checked on the boy to ask how he felt. He asked if the boy was so upset he wanted to transfer and promised he'd still join his study group even with the protection. Kim Salhin refused, telling Gam that his interference may have worsened things. Raising his voice, he insisted he wouldn't pursue someone who had done their best best, only the weak acted like that. He believed it was best to let them finish quickly, but Gamon's help stopped his ordeal. He insisted that protecting himself mattered even more than schoolwork. He wondered why Gamon acted naive when he was clearly in disguise. He wanted to avoid being a target but soon saw his plan had failed. Stunned speechless, he watched as Chu Jae-hang confronted Kim Salhan, asking if he thought hiding was difficult with such a trace. Asking masked boy's identity, he learned he wasn't Kim San's friend, just someone unknown. Admitting ignorance of his identity, Gamon sensed an attempt at protection. Chu Jae-hang then asked if he could keep deceiving him forever. He vowed he'd track down the boy he sought and confront him eventually. Gamon recalled how much his own safety always weighed on his mind. Chu Jae-hang said he'd teach the boy a lesson, record it, and spread it everywhere for others to see. In that instant, a foot landed forcefully on his face. The kick was so strong he staggered, even though Gam had hardly moved his leg. Kim Salhan was stunned, unable to believe that could truly be Gamon. Yet he understood that with his mask shifted, Gamon was strong enough to fight. Despite pretending not to recognize him, Gam still offered his help. He declared study would become his one and only priority. Gam, hidden by the wall, overheard the troublemaker ask if they were friends. Quickly, Kim Salhan insisted they were not friends and claimed he didn't know him. Gam sensed he was being protected, but falsehood in the same class could have worse results. Despite everything, he still chose to stand up for him in that moment. As Jae-hang prepared to punish him, Gamon intervened, lifting his mask, revealing himself and striking a swift blow to the face. That simple action sent the problem maker tumbling through the air. Gamon told his new friend that for safety and focus, studying together should be their only goal and urged him again to join a study group, showing his persistence. It felt odd in that tense moment, especially since Gamon's identity was clear as he spoke of college ambitions and sidestepped Jae-wong's furious blows, as if moving through empty air. Each time the troublemaker attacked, Gamon avoided the blow with ease while chatting with Kim Salhan, leaving his rival ever more baffled. He hoped to persuade him to devise a study group strategy and realized Gamon's words and dodges weren't random, but all part of a bigger plan for education. Speaking calmly, he never lost sight of Jae-wong's swift movements. The spectacle just strengthened his thirst to test his strength. Jae-wong asked if Gamon believed talk of safety and school focus alone could resolve matters. He warned him to brace himself, for if that was true, the outcome was inevitable. Kim Salhan felt a quiet sadness, for school was meant to help students study, not brawl. Jae-hong said while the world admired money and power, at this school it was struggle that ruled. This dictated everything. Despite his words, he unsuccessfully tried to copy a new move. Kim Salhan accepted that what Jang described matched the school's harsh reality. The oppressive spirit of the school could not be easily overturned by a single student. Yet as his punch missed again, hope flickered for change, especially when Jae-hong also saw the boy's true strength after his arm was stopped midair. Gamon claimed he would not fight but still caught Jae-wang's swinging arm. He sidestepped another attack and grabbed his arm but couldn't suppress the next instinct, accidentally striking their rival's face. Shocked he acted on instinct, Gamon remembered his vow as his beaten foe lay in disbelief, yet the troublemaker still invited Kim Salhan to form a study group. Kim was shocked. He never thought a bully could be beaten, and as he remained silent, Gamon guessed he wasn't interested in studies. Kim Salhan pondered deeply since no one had ever posed such a question to him at school. He never found peace, for every attempt to study at home was dispelled by disturbances. His father, bearing certain personal struggles, disliked the notion of him dedicating time to studies. Now at last, someone was sincerely asking if he wished to study together. With a triumphant grin, he replied affirmatively, approving the idea for a study group. Upon hearing his words, Gam turned away to quietly celebrate, but the bell interrupted, urging them back to class. Jae-wang, having lost the contest, was left on the ground, struggling to rise alone. He could barely move, surprised that even the leader of the white classmates had fallen. Suddenly, a voice from behind clearly told him he had been defeated. In anger, he spun and demanded who had dared speak to him with such audacity. His mistake lay in not noticing the speaker was the son of the white comrade's chief and a major in electrical engineering. Amazed, he asked if Hanel had witnessed it all. Hanel nodded and said watching someone who trained kickboxing for 4 years lose to Jae-hang, who now struggled to his feet, was astonishing. Jae-hong questioned the reason for even trying to pick himself up again. The boy struck his face firmly, knocking him right back to the ground. Looking on, Humble remarked that now it was clear who was most powerful there. He added that the mysterious student who defeated who only wanted to study, showing he was still just a child. Hull commented that reality should be shown to him, and his resolve truly put to the test. Elsewhere, the janitor, feeling unsettled, worried the school's reputation was beyond rescue. Ordered by the principal to dispose of cigarette ends, he doubted it would help improve things. He was angry after many years serving there, there and still getting assigned menial chores. At that point, the janitor decided it was best to hand off the obligation to another. Meanwhile, in the lab, Gamon's friend and mentor worked on cleaning up the aftermath of the extinguisher's use. Luckily, she had 2 free periods ahead to take care of it all. She wanted to finish cleaning before the janitor could discover the mess left behind. She felt responsible for it all, knowing this had started because she urged Gam to avoid fighting. She reasoned that helping him meant dealing with these challenges and tidying any problems caused. She recognized he was diligent and mainly wanted academic success, and wondered how else she could guide him towards it. Still irritated while seeking a replacement, the janitor eventually spotted the teacher. He said she belonged in math class and accused her of wasting time in the lab when she should be prepping for inspection. Then he saw the lab was in chaos, as if someone had sprayed the fire extinguisher everywhere. With a harsh tone, he demanded to know who had created such disorder. Still yelling, he promised to unmask the person at fault and ensure they faced consequences. Soon after, spotting a passing boy, he asked him directly if he knew about the cause of the mess. The boy, unfazed, replied that he knew the responsible party, but the teacher begged him not to tell. She offered to accept responsibility for the chaos instead of him. Yet the boy approached, lowered his hood, and calmly announced he was the one at fault. As she watched him, thinking he was Gamon's friend, the janitor kindly asked Jayab about his actions and mentioned the scheduled inspection. Taking the moment, he checked if the extinguishers worked and said he'd change one out for safety. While saying this, his glance lingered on the teacher, who appeared totally out of her depth. The janitor caught on and moved to tidy up, but the boy stopped him, saying he'd handle it alone. Rather brusquely, the janitor summoned the teacher Hankin to join him for more work elsewhere. The young man bowed respectfully, while both assured him they would do as well as they could. Gamon tried to return to his studies but found he couldn't grasp any part of the lessons. Kim Salin comforted him, admitting things were tough now but warned that Gam faced an even harder challenge. He wondered aloud if Gam could not recall a basic theorem from grade school, even when faced with its formulas. He said their problems were sure to deepen under these circumstances. Soon after, he questioned Gamon's genuine passion for studying. He suggested, given Gamon's athletic ability, that maybe sports would be a better fit for him. Yet Gamon always said athletics never truly appealed to him. He started for the sake of balancing mind and body. He asked why Gamon, whom he considered clever, found academics so challenging. He wondered about his choice of school, and Gamon replied he enrolled due to feeling unwanted at home. While talking, he searched until he finally pulled out a certain book he'd been seeking. This book of simplicity, as he called it, held key notes on every confusing point. Really, it was just a notebook. With pride, he shared that if he could revisit everything from 9th grade math via that notebook, perhaps he'd improve from super bad to just bad. The thrill of embracing mischief left him so pleased, he missed the chair hurtling toward him. Since he didn't notice in time, the chair struck his head as Jae Wung ordered everyone out, leaving his prey alone, staring down at him. He announced they'd cover high school subjects, unwilling to recall the shame he'd suffered because of Gam. Gam, piecing it together slowly, was still stunned from the blow he'd just received. His rival now gripped the notebook gifted by his new friend and marveled at its thorough notes. With a crooked grin, Jae Hang remarked it was only fit to be burned, and brandishing a lighter, sparked flames. Still dazed, Gam couldn't move. Meanwhile, the distant teacher Haining was emptying trash bins full of cigarette ends. She felt sorrow in her heart as she wondered when the students' well-being would truly matter. As she scrubbed, she began to notice the principal's face as he spoke about the drop in student attendance. He assured the inspector the school was revered for its graduate rates, valued by both students and parents. Yet Tai Park, school inspector for Inchin's committee, doubted the principal, warning he'd act over any irresponsibility toward students. From afar, they caught sight of the teacher dealing with the overflowing bins. The principal insisted that such matters did not require their attention. At the same moment, he confronted the janitor who was responsible for keeping the premises tidy. The inspector approached the teacher, greeting her and remarking she seemed somehow familiar to him. She warmly replied it was impossible since she was entirely new and had only just begun there. The principal proposed they leave and instead visit the laboratory area. Suddenly, Kim Salhin, a bit breathless, rushed up to the teacher asking for her urgent assistance. The janitor was curious and inquired what situation was unfolding. Kim San, in a frantic voice, shouted out that the classroom had caught fire. Within the room, Gam slowly regained composure after being struck. But upon seeing the burning notebook, his emotions erupted beyond restraint. Holding back, Jae Hang sensed he'd unwittingly provoked the fool across from him. Burning with fury, Gamon issued a warning that if a fight was sought, a fight there'd be. While Kim Salin updated everyone about the classroom, others began yelling about the fire as well. The principal, struck by surprise, asked the boy what he meant since he had heard nothing. Neither the teacher nor the student understood why the staff ignored a fire that could easily grow out of hand. The inspector saw that the principal was only looking out for himself. If there was actually a fire, the situation could end in total catastrophe. The principal reassured the inspector, promising to take care and suggesting a quick visit to the lab. All that remained was to go to the supply room for a new bulb. The principal led on, claiming it was just a bulb. Irritated, the janitor realized the student had already shown the teacher the room. They hurried down the corridor, driven by urgency as flames loomed on their route. The teacher inquired sincerely about what had truly taken place. He replied that Jae-hang arrived and commanded everyone to evacuate. He witnessed the moment when the boy took the notebook meant for Gamon without permission. Trouble started as a third-year set fire to the book, declaring it worthless. Chaos followed, though he watched as the boy tossed the book onto the floor in flames. Gamon tried to save the book, but at that crucial moment, the upperclassman kicked him away. Then, shouting for Gamon to stay out of his business, the third year let the book burn. He wanted to offer help, but the aggressor got in his way. With the command to leave, the idea to seek her assistance came to him. Determined to aid his new friend, he couldn't simply walk off after all that occurred. He urged Gamon to rise to his feet. He asked how he calmly sat silently, convinced he could avoid consequences. Everyone noticed the book was tossed near the bag, which had also started to burn. The third year, distracted, tried to save the bag from the fire but swiftly kicked Gamon, preventing him from stopping the fire. Noticing Gamon's attention placed firmly on the bag's fire, he acted quickly. Attempting to grab his head, he failed as Gamon dodged and seized his attacker. Gamon dashed over to rescue the burning book and backpack. Nearby, people said Jae-hang had fallen, but with his face turned, he missed the moment. They assumed he'd just stumbled, calling him misfortunate, who now bore silence under their threat. Nobody yet knew what he confessed to the teacher, and truthfully, even he was unsure then. An unthinkable event loomed, causing Gamon great distress as he waited long for assistance. Jae-hang in his third year kept resisting, scolding him for missing the truth flashing before him. That was Gamon's moment of change, firmly demanding apologies for Seun's burnt notebook. Suddenly, when they all turned, they found that the said person had quietly vanished. He'd escaped, whether they knew that found that the said notebook's real person had worth. Jae-hang mocked, insisting being rid of the old notebook was a favor he should appreciate. Fed up, Gamon retorted he'd gladly accept the challenge if Jae-hang truly wanted conflict. Jae-hang seized another chair, hoping again to hurl it across the room at Gamon. In one smooth movement, Gamon extended his foot to disrupt and trip his opponent. Once the elder stumbled to the floor, Gamon rained blows on him without hesitating. To Jae-hang, Gamon's response seemed uncharacteristic, especially as he claimed not to care. He insisted, seniority aside, he should study in peace. The pushed senior grabbed his half-charred bag and tried throwing it. Gamon quickly checked it with his foot, then launched the saved bag right back. Jae-hang, catching on, adjusted himself and made a half-turn to toss it again at Gamon. Gamon outmatched him, striking Jang's face with the bag, then landing a kick. Defeated, the opponent crumpled and was forcibly tossed from the room. That was when the teacher and his companion rushed onto the scene. As they entered, the clamorous room greeted them with a fallen body basking in defeat. Still seething with rage, Gamon shook his body, vowing not to tolerate this any longer. Hankin stood puzzled, for she had known Gamon long and never seen this side as others watched. They continued on their way toward the study area. Confused, the janitor wondered why the vice principal remained, though he'd planned to visit the lab after regaining control, looking up from the floor. Gamon sought to learn the student's identity, requesting the name of who started the fire. Irritated by the incident, the principal channeled all his annoyance toward the teacher. He demanded to know how she had let the fire occur, especially with the inspector there. He lashed out at her while the inspector was on the phone and told her to leave, fearing more consequences. He found the whole ordeal tiring, and the students didn't bother to learn even when approached. He remarked that yet again, another troublesome student had appeared unexpectedly. Yet Miss Hankin didn't perceive them that way, especially the familiar student. Grinding her teeth in anger, she finally called out to the principal, unable to bear the injustice. Intent on confronting him, she agreed to speak privately after he finished his call, as he said such events were rare. He promised the matter would end soon. The inspector asked if he alone should report on the student. Just then, the principal said classroom teachers should attend the discussion from the room. Teachers could then observe what was occurring in the principal's office. Talk spread quickly about the Class 1 student who had confronted a bully. He said a fight broke out in a room that soon caught fire. Meanwhile, Ganon waited alongside the others, expecting to be summoned soon. He overheard people unfairly likening him to students uninterested in their studies. Only then did he recall it was the inspector's visit, something forgotten in his anger. Worried about the outcome and his mother's reaction to expulsion, he heard the inspector's coming. Zen walked into the space where Gamon sat waiting and asked what his friend was doing there. Zen shared how the group fled while the leader was treated unfairly. He admitted that Gam seemed like someone easy to like. He questioned Gam on his actions, noting the only loss was the notebook, which could happen in anger. Gamon explained his attachment came from putting so much effort into those notes. He confessed that despite beginning with order, chaos inevitably overtook his work. He said his attention to detail stemmed from wanting to become more intelligent. Seeing his hard work erased in a heartbeat overwhelmed him, while Shin recovered his lost glasses. Gam believed he had lost them after seeing how far they had been thrown away. Cien explained he found them during the tidy-up, thanking Gam and promising mutual support. The principal strode in angrily, declaring Gamon was there for self-reflection, not conversation. He firmly demanded Sen return at once to the classroom he had abandoned. The principal claimed all of this chaos began after Gam's notebook was set alight. Now he was unsure how to get the inspector to notice the core of the true issue. He reminded the student he had committed an act of aggression at the school. He insisted it was disgraceful to harm another out of anger, calling him disrespectful. The inspector observed troublesome youths exist in every school, but Miss Hankin rejected the accusation. She stated quietly that only the other Class 2 student, a repeated bully, caused those troubles. She then claimed he had links to a group called the White Leaders, a criminal circle. The principal ordered her to stop and argued that none were involved in gangs here. He aimed to convince the inspector the school was a fine example filled with model students. He stressed Gam was the only source of problems and advocated for his expulsion. Unable to accept the unfairness, teacher Hankin asserted the school was meant to educate all. Their words were misconstrued and they alleged she simply wanted to shield her favorite pupil. But all she cared about was finally finding someone eager to learn by her side. In the chaos, Gamon recalled his friend's vow, and the teacher insisted the school was at fault. The entire system is flawed, she said. The school is distracted from true purpose by inspections. Ignoring 400 students for one inspector, she declared she'd contest Gamon's expulsion or resign. She said she would not let herself be a victim or follow in the principal's footsteps. Those statements reminded the inspector of how he knew that young teacher. She was Hankin Lee, the highest scoring candidate in that year's teacher certification. By the infirmary, students chatted about Jae Hang, who'd been beaten by an unknown classmate from Class 1. Their mockery was cut off as a boy came over and playfully knocked their heads together. Casting them down, he declared Jang Chu shouldn't abandon failure, even if called a coward. He proclaimed his sole right to criticize the outcast as the White Chum Group's leader's son, and introduced himself as Sanan Bang from room 2 to 7 in naval engineering. Laughing heartily at the infirmary door, he remarked these things happen to those lacking vigor. He wondered aloud if Jae Hong believed he could fight with such frailty and later fall ill. Kicking the door wide, he announced he'd already heard about what befell the boy within. Still chuckling, he strode forward to pull aside the curtain drawn for the ailing student's privacy. His smile faded instantly, his face going pale as seriousness replaced his earlier humor. Within a heartbeat, anger overtook him, and he fiercely demanded to know what transpired inside. Elsewhere in the teacher's office, an uncomfortable silence lingered in the tense air. The principal, walking toward her room, questioned if he'd misheard, as people suggested no one trusted seriousness over a schoolboy brawler. Signaling the student, he insisted such a defiant youth ought to be removed from school. Gripping the principal's arm, teacher Hankin firmly defended the boy, denying such rebelliousness. Though told to release him, she argued the student acted in self-defense after an unprovoked assault. She asserted that compared to his peers, the boy's diligence in learning stood out unmistakably. After just 2 days, she pleaded for fairness to all, asking the principal to apply this strictness schoolwide. Admitting conflicts were common, she believed the school should serve as a true place of growth. Feeling uneasy to confess, she maintained that violence can never be condoned for any reason. Her words brought guilt, made clear by the slight trembling of her hands. Since rules were ignored, the school became a hostile place, forcing students to fight simply to overcome it. She argued the principal's call for justice should extend throughout the entire school community. He questioned her intent, asking if she wanted to instruct him in how to run the school. Before the inspector's protests, he asked if she doubted his care, labeling her a temporary educator. The inspector, observing all this, found himself on the edge of laughter. Patting the principal's shoulder, the inspector admitted defeat, surprised by the boldness from a new teacher. Gazing at her, he observed that what lay beneath remained unchanged. As he had foreseen, she emerged as the leading contender to ace the teacher exam. When the inspector learned she had a teaching license, his surprise was immense. Gamon could hardly grasp that she had secured the #1 ranking. The principal wondered if this achievement was genuine or a mere misunderstanding. How could she top the list? She could have joined any private institution she wished. Curiously, the inspector remembered she graduated last year but never registered her certificate despite reminders. Her registration was revoked due to personal reasons. He confirmed her identity, amazed at her brilliance. She had kept her promise of seeking a certificate, hoping to guide students to discover direction. The inspector stated, "This is the first instance I've witnessed such a remarkable thing." He asked her why she abandoned her goals and why she picked that very school. He questioned whether she wished to inspire change in that particular place. He also inquired how she intended to make a difference at that school. The principal was upset. Despite her program status, she was still a substitute teacher, unable to change anything. She recalled Gamon's earnest desire for guidance to become a better pupil, though she proposed starting a study group to help Gam. That was the simple concept she wished to put into action. The principal grew frustrated with only a study group as her plan, continually checking his watch. The inspector advised to wrap things up but then saw value in her plan and suggested they support it. He stated even in his role as inspector and assured the principal all was in order. The students' desire was simply to engage in learning. It would be regrettable if they just triggered an alarm as a ruse. Miss Haining must lead the group regardless. As he departed just before entering the car, he pondered Haining's journey as a substitute there. Yet changing the place she aimed to transform seemed an impossible mission. As he settled into the car, someone inquired about his prolonged absence. His son, GB, sat in the back seat wiping dirty hands while his father grew anxious over lost time. Catching his son's eyes in the mirror, he said he'd only been held up, not truly late. He'd seen the picture sent to him, but he doubted it stayed within proper boundaries. Content in his crimson-covered clothes and hands, he grinned, explaining he merely took a message to a school bending logic and ignoring responsibilities. Sanjin Bank's confusion surged in the infirmary where Jae Wong stood, his arms secured tight. It seemed the boy had yielded. After numerous tries, he confessed to his father the school bore no duty for students. His father consented and added, thus, schools ought to take responsibility by shutting down. Once the ordeal faded, their focus turned to nurturing the study club together. Gam and his math teacher created hand-drawn posters which pleased her for their charm. The pair soon set about sharing news of the study group within the school. Due to Gamon's rough history from the fight, many dismissed him as just another troublemaker. Sen found herself amid gossip and speculation about the founder, while another remained silent. That quiet observer was Jin, who silently took in all their words without comment. Posters decorated many areas around the school, and at one of them someone looked closely. Hanwo, gazing at the flyer, felt a need to pretend to be good-hearted. On seeing the future those posters promised, he claimed he was kind too, then destroyed the poster with passion. Eventually Saturday arrived, time had quietly pressed onward. Miss Haining waited at Gamon's house and the guard recollected the boy's usual bustling weekends. He hurried with excitement, relieved to find Gamon still engrossed in his usual workout. There was joy in watching his training, a way to assure that everything stayed on track. Yet when the teacher arrived, surprised Gamon lost his footing and fell to the ground. Realizing Gamon was with his teacher, the guard grumbled about it being bothersome. Gam regretted making her wait, sheepishly admitting the missed appointment and apologizing. She simply answered that as long as he joined her now, everything would be fine. Together at a bookstore, Miss Hankin, confident in her book-choosing expertise, saw all was well. She gathered many books to purchase, telling Gamon his poster duty was done and delighting him with a rare Bruce Lee edition he found. When he glimpsed the towering stack of books, he doubted she'd take them all. She noted he now had more than enough reading to last him a long while. He doubted he'd finish them, but she reassured him it would be a simple task. Gamon admitted surprise, for she seemed prepared to finish the certification process. He realized he hadn't known just how extraordinary she was. Yet she explained that merely replying correctly on exams didn't make her impressive. Passing the certification test alone wouldn't transform her into a good teacher. She promised to support him and strive to be a better teacher. That spark drove her desire to study. Suddenly she noticed a comic discarded nearby, likely tossed by some mischievous child. Swiftly, Gam placed himself between her and harm, shielding her from trouble. He managed to save her. She expressed excitement for the upcoming study group. After ages away from bookstores, she felt revived ascending her apartment stairs, speaking to herself, unaware 7 hours had disappeared. She wished little by little the students would work to transform the school. Once at her doorstep, she observed the entryway was left somewhat ajar. Worried about what might await her, she stepped in carefully. Meanwhile, Gamon regretted mentioning he loved spicy food. The missing Bruce Lee magazine worried him. He quickly recalled he'd tucked the magazine among Miss Hing's belongings. At home she faced a dilemma. A group of her students had come and were now waiting for her. Student looked at her with a mocking grin, displaying a trace of insolence. He declared he'd join the group so they could freely come to her home anytime. Torn over the interview, Gam searched for his coveted magazine, weighing if he'd wait 2 days for it from Miss Hankin, as troublesome students visited her. One of these students went so far as to strike her across the face. With fierce eyes, the student warned her to wait as he threatened damage, while Gamon debated going to Miss Hing's or waiting to see her at school. Sanjin Bang arrived intent on questioning Hanwell about the incident with Jae-wung. But Hanwell, with his beautiful companion, kept chatting without fighting, ignoring San's arrival. Annoyed, he cried out for attention, hoping his words would reach Hano's ears. Hano's mind sure was that elsewhere, eventually he would raise his voice about it, seeking time alone with the girl for a movie despite discomfort, while San impressed, asking if Hanwell felt anything about Jae-wung's fate. He refused to ignore injustice, sure that eventually he would raise his voice about it. Annan's persistence grew heavier with each word spoken. Pausing his time with her, the young man wondered why he should care about people who got what they deserved. He openly declared his indifference toward those kinds of individuals. He thought such people were foolish and shared only a workplace through their fathers. Though he wasn't one of them, he enjoyed the sight of that boy who detested the gym now looking so clueless. His heart soured, delighting in holding power over others. He insisted that power changed people people, having already selected the boy to see how swiftly such change occurred. Yet changing the environment around him was a necessary first step. He found the prospect intriguing, speaking of sending men to frighten Miss Hankin into silence. The act of striking her was just the beginning sign for everything to unfold. Everyone nearby grasped this, and complications quickly followed. The teacher, sensing danger, reached for her phone from her bag in haste. But one of the men acted quicker, seizing her face and wrenching the phone away. Outmatched and weakened, her efforts were futile. Her phone was tossed aside as he said police meant nothing here. He added that before the police appeared, their deed would be done. Staring into her eyes, he asked what trauma would comfort her, ordering havoc to begin. He requested ideas for frightening her, intending a terror that would deeply shake her. Holding her hair, she trembled and pleaded for help as someone approached outside. Wary and surprised, they turned to face the newcomer. It was the boy who had once stopped them, still in his school jacket. He glanced around and swiftly recognized the unfolding scene. The teacher, shaken and on the ground, immediately recognized him as well. He had willingly taken responsibility for Gam's error. A newcomer claimed Hanwell was pretending, even though he was just an ordinary fellow. W Group asked him how he ended up there, suggesting it might not have been by chance. Their leader ordered them to test if he was troublesome and instructed them not to show mercy but deliver a sharp lesson if needed. Nevertheless, they warned he was very skilled in combat, as he dodged every attempt with ease. W was frustrated he could no longer act mischievously with the teacher present. He felt the leader erred since the visitor's presence wasn't an accident, suggesting knowledge of the tense situation with Miss Hankin, still paralyzed by dread. She could only watch events unfold. They said the boy resembled a masked judge serving justice and mocked him. Wow insisted he'd handle things alone, thinking himself superior as he managed a few strikes at his rival's belly. Despite searing pain, he couldn't yield but was forced to keep fighting and guard against attacks. Blows kept hitting his abdomen as laughter followed, and someone said his arrogance would end soon. The fighter, G Park, after dealing a few hits, smiled and called his opponent courageous. He paused for a moment and wondered whether they had discovered something about the old incident. This thought urged him to control his nerves and reshape the unfolding scenario to regain his advantage. With brass knuckles grasped, he threw them at the lamp above, breaking it into pieces. Sharp glass rained down, slightly cutting one person's head as his plan played out and startled the room. Those present accused him of resorting to cheap tactics in his desperation. Rapidly, he gripped the teacher's wrist, lifted her, and dashed away with haste. Realizing his actions stemmed from distress, the group sensed urgency to recover Miss Hankin. Not far away, the boy ran swiftly, pulling the teacher along as he tried to ensure her safety. But he soon realized the group had divided, forming two pursuit teams ahead. He glanced back at the teacher and told her to stay behind, as his protection was limited for both. At her home, her damaged phone still rang, continuing to function despite its broken state. It was Gam on the line. Repeated calls met no answer and he couldn't fathom the absence of reply. He figured she was napping, yet deeply wanted the magazine featuring her interview. To those hesitant to interrupt him, he seemed aloof. He'd reached her home but lacked the nerve to announce himself. Not far off, the thugs pursued both the teacher and the escaping student with haste. Everything unfolded behind him, and upon hearing her name, he turned to grasp the situation. W declared he would finish them both when they were caught. Gam calmly adjusted his glasses, eyes resolute, and followed with eagerness for battle. Once the group saw the teacher's photo, they were struck by her unexpected beauty. They wondered aloud if they'd ever witness such a beautiful teacher again. GI and YB stepped ahead to see her, while others urged them to move so she was not obscured. At this point, one among them seemed to recognize the boy, singling him out with his finger. He mentioned he recognized the boy from somewhere in the past. The boy in that instant recalled a particular past event. Stopping before him, the boy recalled knowing him from middle school, after which he spoke of going to America, admitting the boy embarrassed him by taking second place in 8th grade. Because of that slight, he insisted he'd never forget his face, even if he tried. Fuming, he aimed a kick at the boy's face, intent on settling scores. But besides shielding Miss Hankin, Gamb also carried a crowbar and quickly struck his attacker's leg. The man collapsed in pain, clutching his injured leg and muttering about the intense hurt. Upon overhearing the talk of rankings, Gamb realized the conversation meant something different. He turned and declared that making rankings was pointless. A crowbar makes everyone the same. As he spoke, Miss Hankin recalled that he had brought the crowbar from her place. GI and YB then grasped no one there knew the backstory, so there was nothing holding them back. He silently saw the crowd as unworthy and thought they'd benefit from tough discipline. Miss Hankin doubted that all present were truly just high schoolers. Thinking technically they were minors, she resolved to quickly inform the police. If left unchecked, these events could lead to real harm. Then someone reminded her that as a teacher, she couldn't leave while a student was in conflict. He found herself yet again standing up in their defense. When nothing restrained him, he lifted his hand again at the teacher, fired by fury. She once thought the children were virtuous, but now, recognizing they were far gone, she closed her eyes in dread and braced herself, until unexpectedly a hand yanked her attacker back by the shirt, warning him and sending him toppling. G, unsure of his reason for being there, asked him directly. He answered, returning a book he took by mistake, stumbled into this by chance. W felt anger at hearing him, disliking his unexpected presence, though he pretended only Miss Hankin was there. He requested an account, but she said it was too complex to explain. For now, she could only state that Gamb had aided her. With no knowledge of him until she explained Gamb was also a high school graduate from America, truly besieged by these boys. He asked her to wait a moment and expressed that she should permit him to walk with her. During their talk, he managed to fend off several that tried seizing her arm. Gamb, hearing a commotion, recognized the man as the fighter from before. But circumstances weren't in his favor, and with no route for escape, they meant to punish Gamb, yet he bravely blocked their path. Instinctively, he seized one weapon, swung a wooden staff and chain against his foes. Against anyone who attacked, he shielded himself firmly. Ganab, watching him, wondered if there was some familiarity in the stranger's stance. Yet the fight only escalated, with others believing an ambush would make things easier. But they faced someone far from ordinary. He admired Bruce Lee. He informed Gamb he heard legends of him coming from America. Thus, seeing him as fluent in English, he wished Gamb to join the study group. Despite chaos, GB could only focus on expanding his study group, even as more foes arrived. He was undeterred. Gan YB felt that such a request was strangely timed. Gamb asked for help with his bags, while their opposition suspected evasion. At his home, his mother glanced through the list of his tasks for that day. She recalled his promise to plan everything, certain he was serious. Nevertheless, a particular item on the list disturbed her a little. He would practice nunchucks using his own creations, demonstrating his diligence as a quick learner. He fashioned weapons from pieces he took, fighting even as everyone tried to catch him. Few could even come close to landing a hand on him. His talent stood out. He faced all challengers, driven by the need to defend himself. JB realized he planned to battle solo by handing over the bags and used his improvised weapon expertly. Still, everyone present was just a student from their own school. Yet their intentions were far from identical. They were of nearly identical ages. Nonetheless, not everyone possessed the martial arts skill Gamb had cultivated. His attacks, blocks, and counters were truly something to behold. Going up against everyone on his own, he was thriving thanks to the open space. He had an edge fighting outside, unlike Gamb, who began in a tight area but later showcased his superior skills when he escaped to the open. Wielding his makeshift weapon, he knew he couldn't bring out its full strength. Yet that did not stop him from acting impulsively to shield himself and those near him. Seeing things had settled, Miss Hankin walked toward Gamb. She wished to be sure he was unharmed, suspecting that multiple battles had worn him down. While they conversed, a sudden crash echoed through the air. W hit the ground with force because Jian's anger was not yet soothed. He hoped to get answers and believed Gamon held some of them. After slamming him down, Jian warned Gamon to speak about the case or there would be trouble. Bao honestly had no idea what they were talking about. Gab stepped near, clarifying they meant the unresolved murder, saying Gam knew more. He insisted that, as White Lead's accomplice, Gam must have some clue. He spoke of the one who actually committed the crime. Gamon offered no reply, so Gab demanded if he truly would remain silent. He pressed further, leveling the crowbar near Wow's face to force a response. Gamb inspected the tool, noting its condition and school origin, curious how Gamon used it to unlock the door. Was the security setup really this careless, or perhaps covered by a silent understanding? Gab hinted that if Gam broke this agreement, he wouldn't say a thing, not even under duress. Drawing the tool closer to his head showed his intentions, but still received silent opposition. GB warned that breaking someone's door comes with consequences, even if they're quite basic. Right then, Miss Hankin rushed forward in hopes of averting a looming serious incident. Gamon arrived first, seized the crowbar to keep Wow safe, and told GB to stop and set the child free. Confused by the anger, Gamb wondered if Gam agreed with him, reminding all the victim was his own mother. He invited Gamon to a study group but was rejected. Gamon preferred resolving things directly with Gamb. He told Gamon bluntly to move aside and leave his presence without interfering anymore. Gamb desired to finish things that day and escort Miss Hankin home, pushing Gam to clear the way. While watching, Gam couldn't shake the mention of losing his own mother and its lasting pain. It was in that instant that Gam was overtaken wholly, his rage blinding him completely. He didn't grasp Hyena's connection but imagined him capable of such cruelty nevertheless. He was unable to comprehend how someone could rob a child of their mother, not knowing his struggles. JB clarified that there was no need to intervene or fear he'd act poorly, and once aware of himself he let the crowbar go. Gam had already caught hold of the person by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Hard-voiced, he interrogated if such an act was done, demanding truth because humans shouldn't do this. He declared anyone capable of the deed was only fit to leave, for they were beneath even that. GYB held Gamon's arm, remarking it was tough to know if he was clueless or incredibly clever. He doubted Gamon's seriousness, certain that the true perpetrator was unmistakably that person. Hearing this, Gamon let his hold loosen so the person sank down, GB asserted it couldn't be true, realizing he was rough-mannered. He accused him of only feeling whole when battering others, professing such actions made him refusable. Facing JB, he admitted he might once have been frightened, but he kept suppressing others regardless. He revealed truly he was enslaved by Hofi's will and would thus never find who was responsible. Gamon felt he'd heard that name before. Gam said if people's roots weren't cut they'd act as they pleased, just as he had with Miss Hankin. He insisted he couldn't let unresolved matters go, while she believed in fitting consequences. Gamon remembered Hano Hyang saying he'd remove them, but the reason eluded him. Handing back the bags, GB added that everything was already explained and he should grasp why. He thought understanding between them would be a slow process. Jayan said Miss Hankin could deal with him as she wished, but should not fixate on punishments. The reason was he reminded her of Jayan Park's mother. Ganom seemed to recall Jayan, perceiving he was not whom he seemed to be. He was merciless, unaware of his own intimidating presence like a disguised wolf. His appearance didn't suit him up close. In front of Hyen Woo, Miss Hankin told him that, rude or not, entering someone's house unlawfully was a crime. For him though, the community represented his entire world. Heavy expectations filled that community, and his unwise actions led her to warn paths of wrongdoing offered no return. On another note, someone read updates on their phone and found the unfolding drama entertaining. Returning to teacher and pupil, she finally gave him the much-desired magazine. Saturday wound down and Miss Haining promised to handle it all, taking him home, reminding him to study, and with Monday, a new issue arrived. They needed 5 members in 2 weeks or the study group would disband. Sen had already registered, but more people were required. They noticed everyone avoided them. 3 more were needed, and the teacher urged calm, hoping the director returned. Trying to reassure them, she mentioned someone had contacted her and requested they bring this person in. Thus Sen inquired about the person's name. Miss Haining answered Jowie Lee Young. The school was co-ed with some girls in the chemical engineering branch. This is where the next study group member was to be found. He sought her out there and swiftly convinced her to join their side. Elsewhere, Miss Haining contacted Hankin Fai, who showed up, though not quite willingly. Although he disliked his meal being disrupted, his curiosity compelled him to go. He gazed at her with irony, questioning her motives and expecting her explanation. Yusung Engineering College was a co-ed place as well, but the classes were separated by gender. In reality, some students barely interacted with the others, their exchanges rare indeed. This caused the 2 boys to feel anxious, since until now they'd never seen the girl's face. The teacher had selected them to go with her, entrusting this complex, challenging task to Gamon. Suddenly, a young woman called out the very name of the girl for whom they searched. Seeing someone nearby call for Zhao, they considered themselves fortunate. Yet on closer look, Sen perceived something unusual happening. He thought he should have realized it from her name, but nervousness clouded his recognition. Leaning closer, he whispered to his friend that something felt deeply amiss. It was then he explained that Hyen Woo had a twin and their search was really for her sister. He added that the girl had a bad reputation and doubted she would join their group willingly. Ganom noticed that though she seemed to have a shady story, she'd just been slapped, not incriminated. The passing girl shouted insults after slapping another, her anger spilling into words. The scene left the surrounding girls wide-eyed and unsettled. Even so, the angry girl blamed her chemistry grade on the other, insisting she caused it. Jai retorted, saying this wasn't some old movie, mocking her but claiming joy at her boyfriend's choice. The girl answered that K-Jin didn't see her romantically and snatched a paper from her friend's grasp. Her friend, holding the practice test, had been waiting for Unwhy girl to leave before handing it over. Having seized the paper, the young woman crushed it and tossed it aside, calling them desperate. With anger, Miai Heng lifted her hand, intending to strike someone there. Yet her motion was halted by Jolly, who stood up so her friend wouldn't be hurt. Looking defiant, she declared she alone would permit herself to be the target of trouble. She stressed her friend worked hard that previous night and deserved fairness. She insisted that if Miai wanted trouble, she should focus her annoyance elsewhere, particularly on her. Mahai, feeling the strength of her adversary's grip, sternly told her to let go. He went. Choi, who was conflict-averse, stood trembling with shut eyes, gripped by fear. It looked like the bully would leave her friend alone, only troubling Jia Li as allowed. Jia Li told her to put the PE uniform on the desk and rushed her to pay her brother's debt. She then mentioned it was wiser to get a job, dismissing the importance of schoolwork. The friends watched as she almost dropped her chewed gum on the exam for the final insult. Right before the gum hit the paper and spoiled the test, someone managed to intercept it. Jai Willie admired the quick reaction the boy showed in saving the test from ruin. Sen noticed as his companion moved closer to the girls, attentive to the unfolding scene. The bully was clearly startled as the boy caught and held her gum in the palm of his hand. The girl demanded to know the identity of the boy who had intervened. He soon got sidetracked, remarking about the excellent exam and mentioning he'd also taken it. He asked the red-haired girl if she took the test, but she stayed speechless, still in shock. Outside, his friend looked in through the window, imagining his boldness with admiration. Nearby, a familiar boy entered and asked if Gamon was the Class 1 boy who faced Jae-wung. This boy, Kyun, asked what his intentions were with the girl he claimed as his girlfriend. He challenged Gamon to settle things in a fight outside, bracing for confrontation. Gamon, aware of his predicament, opted to escape, excusing himself and promising to return. Left behind, the boy felt confused and a sense of disappointment washed over him. He thought the girl's trouble would end now that her boyfriend had arrived to protect her. Despite this, there was something unusual about the exchange he overheard between them. The boy pressed for answers, and Gamon felt the situation might escalate quickly now. He asked the girl to show her hands for punishment, questioning her hesitation and regret. When she presented her hands, he promised 3 light punishments and said she should not be upset. Raising a ruler, he said the discipline would be mild, but then discovered gum tossed in his hair. Gamma asked directly why the boy called her his girlfriend and why he was acting so possessive. While removing the gum, Kijun asked if he thought defeating Jae-wung made him their superior. Just as he seized Gamon's collar and shook him, a commanding voice sharply interrupted them, warning with authority. Clearly displeased, the school supervisor's anger echoed in the hall. The supervisor asked whether Sin had missed the earlier call for the student council meeting. Releasing Gamon's collar, he promised they'd cross paths again, addressing him as Class 1 boy before letting go. Gam tidied his clothes with dismay, while classmates murmured Ja was to blame for the tense mood. A friend approached to ask if Ja was alright, to which Ja sighed that love was cruel. The two left together as Gam silently watched. He later sat beside his friend on a bench, who questioned if he wished for a peaceful graduation and why he'd thrown gum at a student council member. Defending himself, Gam explained he didn't realize the boy belonged to the student council. He said he couldn't stand aside as a group companion was pursued, so his friend pressed if he decided and asked if the choice felt wrong. They paused, noticing a girl approaching. It was Ja's companion. She seemed relieved to find them still there, and it appeared she had something urgent to tell them. Gamma wondered if this was the girl who'd been with Jawa, then questioned if anything was amiss. She confessed to submitting the form, admitting she'd used her friend's name simply as a plea for help. Their request was for her to aid her friend. They sought to understand what she meant by saving her companion. She revealed her friend suffered bullying since grade school, resulting in poor grades. Forcing herself to be brave despite lingering wounds, she enrolled at the daunting engineering school. Soon after, harassment struck again. Girls took her money, even her book money, until Jawa came and asked why the tears. Choi softly explained her tears came from losing her money. While she wept, the one who stole laughed callously about taking her money. In that heated moment, Ja confronted them fiercely, often defending her friend, emboldened by years of judo training. Though often frozen in fear, she remembered Ja telling her that even small grade improvements meant confidence, with Jawa ever encouraging her studies. So a friendship formed. Adventures to the library on weekends began until trouble arose when her twin, Hyun-woo, borrowed from Kyun. Hyun-woo borrowed money and K-jin secretly filmed him fighting, likely to use the tape as blackmail if payment was missed. K-jin used that footage to force Zhao's compliance, holding the threat over her with cruel intention. Whenever her brother came up, anger welled inside her despite him always being a challenge. Yet the bullying faced by Jaya kept returning, and as W. Choi once received kindness from her friend, she longed to return the favor. This all happened before she moved schools. Though she hadn't confessed to her friend, the move was only because her father changed jobs. Understanding firsthand the pain of bullying, she knew her brave friend secretly suffered too. For this reason, she put aside her pride and pleaded with them to protect Jaya. She begged them to fill her absence and support her friend with their company from now on. Gam checked if his friend agreed, reiterating that trouble with council members promised hardship. His friend declared it was fine since he stood beside Gam, the fierce fighter. He added that school life always felt draining from the very first to the final bell. Miss Hankin wondered aloud about who was, as he never seemed to show up to class. She claimed little knowledge of him, having only stayed briefly, although she'd heard they were friends. Hong Wol suspected she'd probe about Saturday's events, but instead she pretended nothing happened. Believing she had secret motives, he simply responded that her assumption was off base. He denied being close, mentioning someone else was, and revealed who secretly had a twin. As he prepared to say the name, Miss Hankin revealed it to be Jae-lo of Class 1-1. Meanwhile, someone else saw leverage in a video threatening Jawa and sensed he might grow closer to her, yet he stayed the council's one anomaly. He expected them any moment, idly toying with a flash drive, little knowing a boy in glasses was silently spying on him from the closet. A little earlier, before it all began, Gamon met with his friends and hatched a plan together. Even after a month passed, Ganom seemed unaware of the unfolding events at the school. Sen, his reliable companion from the study group, described the purpose of the student council. He said it existed as a necessary force, rounding up leading troublemakers and policing the lesser ones. He questioned if Gam understood the current function of the student council's rule. According to rumors, they served Half F. His right hand ran the show and seized victories for him. Even mentioning that boy's name left the mafia boss feared, and everyone shared those nerves. That was why no one dared to enter, and some feared approaching the ominous room at all. Zen cautioned that if exposed, others would discover and turn his weakness against him. Gamon realized no one approached this room, which only fueled his curiosity to explore it. After all, instinct whispered to him that he'd find the flash drive hidden in that place. The flash drive's video was the tool for blackmailing Hyen Woo, prompting W. Choi to act for her. She refused to see her friend exploited due to knowledge of her brother's hidden flaw. In the council room, a boy gripped the flash drive, curiosity alive in his eager hands. This student understood Ja obeyed for that flash drive, so he also wished to meddle with it. Yet he hesitated, uncertain about copying the sole original flash drive in his grasp. Watching from the cabinet, Gamon saw the boy's plans to use a copy for blackmail as well. But trying to make his own copy, the student was immediately caught in the act. Tae-jin entered with a friend, nicknaming the boy Piggy, meaning Do-hoo Yun, and asking if he'd been spying. Do-hoo admitted he was, trying to take the flash drive without being noticed by the others. Everyone quieted as the flash drive's owner laughed at Do's wish to take a copy himself. He seized him by the collar, asking if he realized why his nickname was Pig. Tae-jin remarked he earned the name by not thinking and threw him to the ground in scorn. Se-jin skillfully used judo, easily hurling the heavier boy to the floor once again. He demanded to know if Do-ho believed the nickname Pig was given just for amusement. Relentlessly, he called him Pig, insisting he belonged in the mud. His companion observed judo made Se-jin strong, but his anger centered on the flash drive. He bemoaned leaving the flash drive for moments and demanded Do say if this was funny. Hiding safely, Gamon realized Tae-jin rarely left the precious flash drive in this location. Tae-jin went to grab the flash drive but suddenly decided against it at the last second. He considered uploading it online, but his friend doubted he'd act if Jai obeyed the plan. Zin argued that promises could never truly be trusted to remain unbroken. He'd replay the scene endlessly, humiliating her family before the nation, shattered and restrained, certain she'd be broken because without peace, no one thrives. He waited silently for that break, convinced she'd fall, and even claimed the loaned money was not his. That debt was Hanwell's, and with thoughts of his friend Gamon, he almost burst from his hiding spot. He took off his glasses, getting ready for a fight in the nearby corridor. Both C and Hwan grew anxious seeing 3 council members present in this meeting. It was essential for their scheme to pretend to be rivals and put on a fake conflict. If students brawled, the council would step in, allowing Gamon a window to escape. Sen instructed her to insult him so everyone believed their quarrel was genuine. But hurling an insult seemed nearly impossible, as it was not in her nature to do so. Zhao found it odd seeing her friend interact with a boy, something new for her to witness. So Zhao confronted her and found out exactly what the situation entailed. Meanwhile, Miss Hanky Young's student was taken aback in her classroom. She knew about Hyen's twin, and though expecting intrigue, he left thinking it was fruitless. But while surveying the curiosities on her desk, he glimpsed an interesting side to her. He excused himself, but before leaving, Hanny asked if she knew this phrase. Even with teachers present, education may be absent, he stated. He said only the foolish wish for learning at home. Education, he insisted, belonged in service and not its mission, so if Hyen Woo avoided school, he should accept it. She then asked whether he sought her guidance, adding even those facing ruin might bring light, so never yield. She reminded him surrender was never an option for anyone. While in council chambers with Han Wol, Gam's patience snapped somewhere else. He left his hiding place battling those intent on undoing a friend and, like Miss Hanking, refused to give in. Finishing his words to Hanel, he fixed her with a steady, unwavering gaze. Trouble was growing inside the student council hall. Kin, crossing a line, threatened to post the video, and when Gam stopped him, found him mad. Gam stood firm for his beliefs, just as Miss Hanking never abandoned her students. He was determined never to let a controversial video surrounding twin brothers ruin the lives of his friends, now sprawled on the floor after a tough blow. Gamon considered them absolutely wild, and felt they were unfit for the student council. Tae-jin claimed he couldn't tell trash from food and caused issues, yet he might secretly admire Jawa. These cruel words fueled Gam's anger, as Tae-jin urged him on, saying he only showed up when she was mentioned. Otherwise, he reasoned, why would Gamon be caught in the council room, especially with Tom Kench there? Gamon suspected she deliberately mentioned the flash drive, perhaps as her newest move in the game. He suspected her tactic was foul and unkind toward him. Before he could continue, a punch interrupted him, and Gamon at last lost all self-control. Now Tu-lei sprawled, and Ganam argued he could indeed distinguish food and trash, no matter what. He also knew the instant he met Tae-jin that the latter was nothing but human refuse. Meanwhile, Tae-jin thought Gamon's previous victory over J.W. Wung wasn't just luck. Deeming him stronger, Tae-jin tossed away his jacket, inviting a no-titles fight for the girl. He felt that if he triumphed, Hanwell would recognize Singh, not Gamon, was destined to stand by his side. Grappling with this thought, Tae-jin grabbed Gamon and threw him down with a judo move. Surprised by his own skill, he declared the reason for Gamon's affection for Zhao was her beauty. His aspirations waned as he noticed Gam's real intention, capturing the elusive flash drive in the commotion. That's why he had easily allowed himself to be tossed by Tae-jin. Tae-jin was incredulous that he had been so thoroughly outsmarted by a student in their first year. Meanwhile, Gamon flashed a triumphant smile, holding the item that could keep her beholden to him. Kei-jin resolved to do whatever it took. If he couldn't win her, he would gain leverage online if necessary. Yet Gam refused mercy for such cruel people, delivering a kick that knocked Kei-jin flat. Still, Kei-jin wouldn't stop taunting with fresh words that stung. Davu-yun's awareness gradually returned. He now remembered Gam of Class 1-4 standing before him. All he recalled was how he'd ended up there, while Kei-jin lay nearby looking stunned and confused. He also saw Kei-jin let everything loose at Gam, calling him a frail, undeserving rival. Missing his strike, Gam dodged, flung Kin's jacket over his face and seized him quickly. Then Gam restrained Kin and struck him, knocking him down yet again. Witnessing this, Do-Hoo-young understood Kei-jin was the weak person he'd mentioned before. Now Kin lay alongside the two others sprawled across the ground. Walking to the door, Gam reminded them Kei-jin claimed the winner would get Jawa. He argued such a thing was ridiculous, she was not a prize to be awarded. Hyun used harsh language, taunting Gam as he prepared to upload a damning video to ruin Hyena. He asked Gam of Jaw's dream and boasted they'd face ruined chance at finding work. Mid the chaos, the supervisor walked in, once more finding Gam in a tight spot. In the smoke-filled room where order was expected, the supervisor asked if Gam caused it all and demanded an account. He questioned whether Gam had initiated a fight and taken on everyone present. Meanwhile, Kei-jin, grinning and seated at the computer, awaited the video's upload to expose everyone. In another room, Ja listened to explanations about her friend's pretend argument. Ja asked her friend the purpose behind the alliance with the boys in the study group. Since her friend was often reserved, Ja thought it all seemed pointless as her friend apologized. Ja said her remarks weren't malicious, she just wanted to tackle the problem independently. Heading for the student council room, Ja pondered her hypocrisy, giving advice while facing similar struggles. Ja apologized for appearing vulnerable but warned that if needed, she would fight back next time. Alongside these words, she saw someone fleeing with computer parts as others yelled not to destroy them. Returning to a scene with Jawa and Jo sharing time together. At the dojo, Kim Kin explained to her that he was too focused on training to do anything else. He said ever since he joined the student council, everyone wanted favors. A classmate wondered at Kei-jin's return. He admitted his interest in someone, Ja, whom he'd seen in a promotional seal video that enchanted him. Though doubted by others, Kei-jin sincerely cared for her. The classmate noted Ja, a judo enthusiast, became known for her strength as suitors who underestimated her left defeated, hence her nickname Ronda Rousey. Kin didn't know Ronda Rousey, he only saw Jawa as just another girl, he explained. He believed Jawa would learn her weakness if she ever faced someone strong like him. Suddenly, Jiao was behind him and calmly asked if he wished to challenge her. Startled, Kin questioned which school she went to. Jiao answered Young Technical School. Eagerly, Kin revealed he was from Young, part of the student council, and introduced himself. He told her friendship with him could smoothen school life, as Jiao seized his clothes boldly. She used her judo talent to floor him. Kin pleaded to be released, startled by how easily she threw him as she left. Her warning was clear: keep away unless he wanted to be slammed into the ground again. She claimed he'd truly meet the floor next time, and Kin secretly wondered if she'd dare repeat it. Knowing now they went to the same school, Kin decided to hunt for her weakness from the council room. Kin was set on posting a video he believed would ruin Ja's reputation forever. The progress bar read 96%, just 4% and one click away from his planned revenge. He waited, visualizing Ja's reaction once she realized it when the upload reached 98%. He prepared to click, expecting the aftermath, but Gam arrived suddenly and interrupted him. Gam dismantled the computer swiftly. Kin, too late, noticed Gam already had some parts as he tried disconnecting cables. The upload inched forward, landing at 99%. 1% and a single click remained. Gam yanked out the plug and fled while the teacher chased him, and spotting Jiao, Gam shouted she should keep running. Jiao paused, bewildered, unable to understand the panic. Hun's friends stared in confusion, unable to guess why Gam was making his escape. Gam loudly proclaimed he must protect Ju and ensure her plans were safe. During the sprint he stumbled, causing the computer to crash to the floor. His friends, frozen in place, realized they couldn't do anything as his capture was inevitable. Gam urged Sen to finish the task, and though Sen wavered, he knew he had to honor the request. The teacher caught up, seized Gam's collar, and insisted Sen join in catching him. At that moment the alarm rang, directing all the girls to hurry back to their classrooms. Jiao paid no attention, while Sen pondered how Gamon could run so fast carrying so much weight. Sen found Gamon impressive, and then realized he needed to get from the third to the first floor for the lab. He thought about using the rooftop, since a fall from there would surely ruin the computer. He recalled his vow to Jiao and firmly decided he would keep his promise. As he reached the rooftop, Kin blocked his path, demanding the computer and threatening to toss Sen over if he broke it. Pretending to give in, Sen requested time to think, but then hurled the computer off so it shattered below. Kin charged at Sen, but Jiao arrived in time to stop him, pinning him in place. But Jiao reminded Kyujin of how he had tried arrive too in didn't time her to before as she stopped him, swiftly subdued him using judo. Zhao cautioned him, "If you come after me again, I'll make sure you learn a new lesson." With her foot on his stomach, Jawa demanded to know if he had finally learned his lesson. She eagerly stated she wanted to continue teaching him until he truly understood her message. Xian watched, uncertain how many more lessons Sijun would receive, as Zhao asked him why he was still lying there. She told Qin to stay quiet and insisted giving up so quickly is not the right attitude. Jawa cheerfully said, "I'd like to keep playing, there are so many judo techniques left to show you." Qin admitted his arm felt a bit hurt. He accepted defeat and acknowledged Jawa's victory. Briefly fearing for his arm, he soon recalled Jawa's distinguished skill and realized she'd never crossed the line. He quickly understood she wouldn't harm him, yet Zhao inquired if he was truly certain she wouldn't. She gently reminded Qin that athletes often spar fairly, while he only practiced judo for leisure. Zhao explained she was helping him, as being much weaker put him in danger during any real match. Other council members heard the commotion, causing them to rush anxiously toward the origin of the cries. They arrived and, seeing Sijun defeated, believed it marked the conclusion of his leadership. Shamed, Qin lowered his head and solemnly apologized to Jawa, signaling his respect. After this lesson, he learned the value of kindness and altered his manners. Now when Zhao called his name, he respectfully replied "ma'am" and apologized each time. Jawa became a wise mentor for Tujin. Meanwhile, Haiyan Wu was heading to school, unaware of the brewing chaos. Gamon was led by his ear by a dedicated teacher seeking to discipline him. Gamon sensed this was inevitable and wished Cian had destroyed the computer already. He thought explaining would not improve things and resolved to keep the flash drive for Ja. Yet searching for it, he found it missing and claimed he had no guardian when questioned. Ganom dashed off once more, desperate to locate the missing flash drive. When asked about Miss Hankin being his guardian, he denied any such relationship. He feared the flash drive was lost, convinced it slipped away while he fled. Wanting to help Heen, Choi hurriedly messaged Miss Hankin to visit the student council room. He once stayed concerned for Sen but knew he had done everything he could. Nevertheless, uncertainty lingered with her, bringing sorrow as she faced the outcome. While in the hallway, Heen spotted a flash drive on the floor, thinking it might be K-Jun's. As she stooped, Mi-ai Hang snatched it first, believing it could be K-Jun's flash drive, and asked He-Wan what transpired. Mi-ai swiftly grasped it all and considered that gifting the flash drive to Si-Jin could earn favor. He-Wan, tired of enduring Mi-ai's behavior, declared it was time for change. She refused to let everyone's hard work be in vain. With new resolve, she faced Mi-ai, drawing on courage she hadn't known she possessed. He-Wan recalled Sen's advice, encouraging her to shout if ever it became necessary. Drawing in bravery, He-Wan called Mia a scoundrel for the first time. Her surprising outburst was a step she never expected to take. Mi-ai turned in disbelief, asking He-Wan if the words were meant for her. He-Wan seized the moment, boldly confronting Mi-ai, demanding respect after past humiliations shielded by Jawa. Now it was Chenkei's opportunity to teach Mi-ai a lesson, something new even for herself. After recovering the flash drive and admonishing Mi-ai, Heen affirmed she knew how to respond too. Jiu, watching, questioned if He-Wan would keep this strength when she transferred schools. Ja smiled gently, placing her arm comfortingly around H-Wan's shoulders to reassure her. Now Zhao, He-Wan and Sen were together. When Heen asked what happened, Jawa gestured to boys hauling Q-in away. Hin's defeated friends carried him, as he was crushed by the lesson from the girl he tormented. Jiu, content, commended Hugh for her newfound courage to defend herself. As they went on, a hooded figure passed, proclaiming at last he had found her. Recognizing the voice, Jaya instantly called out for her brother to wait, but Yanwu ignored her pleas. Driven by purpose, he was determined to carry out his intentions to the end. Gripping something sharp, his sister, filled with dread, cried for him to halt, fearing disaster. Miss Hankin, while reading messages, spotted Hu with an object and became deeply uneasy. Recalling Hanel's words about not giving up, Hankin bravely stepped between K-Jin and Haiyan Wu. The teacher boldly positioned herself between the blade and the boy on the student council. Haiyan Wu, blind with anger and vengeance, barely noticed her standing in his way. For a handful of moments, anger and revenge controlled him, leading everything to this fate. Only when Miss Hankin cried out did he realize what he'd done, yet it was already irreversible. All nearby stared in shock, unable to believe the student's actions, but she knew she'd tried her best to comprehend it. Let's return to 2 days prior on Saturday, when Hu stealthily entered Miss Hing's home. Mid the turmoil, it was ultimately she who bore the blame for that unwelcome guest. She often heard Hull's name in the chaos, recognizing the thread leading to Inchin's feared white leader's gang. She remembered Ian saying 4 boys were associated with the group, led by Han Woli. She consulted other teachers, but they said she should never mention the boy or trouble could befall her. Real, serious trouble. That was when she sensed secrets lay deeply hidden within the school itself. At first she found it normal, but would soon uncover that place's unsettling reality. Even the headmaster hesitated and avoided conversations about the matter. To her, it became certain that Hanulfi's presence and that gang brought major tragedies. Situation echoed with the other boy as well. She tried to talk to Haiyan Wu, urging him to reveal who gave him those dark orders. He would only try to flee from her, and in those moments she forbade Gam from pursuing him. She warned the boy he couldn't get away, and being reported would mean certain capture by authorities. The real issue was, no matter their wishes, Gamon would be different each time he returned. When asked to explain, she abruptly shifted the conversation. After walking Gam home, she stood at the police station, resolute in turning him in. She noticed student HJ taking the opposite route, clearly not intending to face the police. With his friends, he seemed sure of himself, but without them, he was exposed for his fearfulness. With his head bowed, he apologized to his teacher, fearing punishment if his father discovered the truth. He confessed he was wrong, swore not to repeat it, then pleaded with her to grant him pardon. He questioned him, asking whether his words were sincere. She told him her forgiveness depended on him sharing all he knew about Hankin Lee. That was when she discovered Hankin Lee was once the top student, excelling even as a young child. He became diligent, unable to rest, declining all outings. Miss Hankin asked why he abandoned schoolwork. The informant revealed it was due to his twin sister's influence. His desire was to enroll in a technical engineering school with her companionship. The siblings lived together in an orphanage, but entering their third year, a corruption scandal closed it down. Though hopeful and hardworking, they were forced out with only 5,001 each in their hands. They decided their sole option was young school, a place they could fully devote themselves to study. Yet Jawa was unique from others, fond of harsh language and skilled as an exceptional fighter. According to Hankin Lee, that's precisely why he abandoned his pursuit of academics. Giving up on academics entirely, he set out to earn money for one reason only: schooling for his sister. The informant thought everything might have been fine had he not encountered dire misfortune. Few jobs were available to students, delivery or internet cafe work, but he was too young for many roles. It was tough making a living, and perhaps this hardship made him perpetually cautious. During one delivery, some acquaintances introduced him to Hanwell. His first meeting with Hanwell saw him risking his only 500 on a betting site, winning instantly. Money he could never earn, even with effort, suddenly appeared, making him revere Hanwell and sparking their friendship. He joined the group in this way and lost himself completely. The informant further told Miss Hankin that, hoping to impress, he got into many fights. But he confessed that was the extent of his knowledge regarding who. The next day, the informant messaged her that things had gone badly, so HJ and Miss Hankin met at a cafe. At that meeting, it was revealed Hankin Lee had been tricked by a man called Kijun, who took his money through a lost bet and was now harassing his sister. HJ explained that Hankin Lee, troubled as he was, acted out because he cared for his sister. But knowing the truth now, Hankin Lee might soon be driven by the desire for revenge. Standing between them, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach, and when he realized, let the sharp object fall, asking her why she intervened. She discovered Hanwell had orchestrated the events from the beginning. He manipulated reality for the students, finding delight in leaving Hu with no escape. Still looking at him, she questioned whether he truly wished to proceed. Grasping her aching stomach, Miss Hankin questioned if his real wish was simply to study. He resolved never to let Hanwell claim victory. She resolved to show she could guide students, having faith in people's potential to change. She believed the power to inspire transformation belonged not only to him. He was warned to be ready, and while Hanwell descended the stairs, some officers called to him. Calm and unshaken, he greeted the officers. When asked for talk, he showed no surprise. Miss Hankin, even as a substitute, possessed far more resolve than he first assumed. Her true aim was to have him expelled, and the officers on the stairs told Hanwell they had a few questions for him. When an officer tried to introduce himself, Humble already knew he was Detective Tammin from the Central Precinct. He acted familiar with the detective and willingly accompanied the officers. This puzzled the detective. How did he know? Leaving with them, Hanwell sensed Miss Hankin's mysterious actions over the weekend. He realized too late that she had begun orchestrating something. Deep down, his only wish was to try changing Gamon's environment, even dragging him to the teacher's lounge. The supervising teacher insisted Hanwell wouldn't escape again, telling the principal he had caught her in time when they were both inside the student council room. The principal hurried over, shouting that it was irrelevant, and ordered someone to call an ambulance. He announced that Miss Han was in urgent need of medical assistance. Students gathered as she tried speaking to who gazed at her incredulously, puzzled by her coming closer though wounded by his hand. Even his twin sister was left stunned by what she saw. As the teacher pleaded with him, Hankin Lee was lost, seeming distant as if in a trance. For the first time, he had hurt another soul, and the guilt made him queasy. Fear for what would follow now gripped his every thought. He recalled Miss Han's words. Jin had misled him and now had intentions toward his sister. Hanwell asked what his sister had revealed, then handed him the sharp object in silence. Hyan had never planned this pain. It was Hano who convinced him it was the only solution at hand. If not, his sister would endure much hardship. Hull let him believe it was right, saying this wasn't the path of a warrior and nothing more could be done. Since that day, Hankin Lee felt like he'd fallen to his lowest, a shadowy road lying ahead. Yet amid that gloom, Miss Hankin appeared, gently holding out her hand, softly calling his name. Gently disregarding her holding out her hand injuries, she cupped his face in her hands and reassured him not to fear. From the very first meeting, she'd vowed to stand by his side. She understood the challenge ahead but promised if he tried, things would slowly mend. Though the world doubted, she still believed he could transform despite his sorrow. The teacher managed a trembling smile, attempting to soothe his troubled heart, who gradually returned to himself, buried under the belief that hope had abandoned him. He murmured that he was bound for a juvenile detention facility in the end. Just then Gam appeared on the scene. Speaking little, he acted quickly and swiftly brought Hu to the ground. Gam watched him closely while the supervising teacher and principal shouted for him to stop. Hu gazed at Gam, demanding to know his constant presence near him. Gam merely took off his glasses and wore them again, which to Hu meant he wished for peace. Gamon shared that one who learns from their errors may discover hope in the future. This echoed a misquoted Bruce Lee line from the notebook where Gam kept wrong answers. He urged Hu to do likewise, and Miss Haining encouraged HW to serve his time and strive to teach, saying it was possible with effort. When Miss Hankin looked at Hyen Woo, lacking pity or disdain, she recognized he was also suffering. She learned this by investigating Hyena's aspirations, discovering over the weekend he dreamed of teaching. As Zhao walked, she pondered who had been found out or reported, and in the study group some wished Hanwell was expelled. Yet they managed to bring Jiwoo in. At that moment an unexpected individual arrived. They assumed the newcomer was Jiwoo, but instead Hanwo appeared to their surprise. Stunned, the group questioned his purpose for coming there. He greeted Gam warmly, expressing his interest in joining their study circle. He waited expectantly for a reply, while Zhao in uniform approached the study room. Her resolve was set to focus her energy on academics at her current school. After the ordeal with police and her brother's confession, her mind raced. Police permitted him to go home after confirming his identity and address. Still, Yawad understood her brother would spend 2-3 months in rehab, boldly saying even years wouldn't fix everything. With honesty, she told him she couldn't just ignore it, accept harmful money, and leave for university. Ja told her brother she was quitting it all and moved to the engineering department at Young High School. She now sought a scholarship undeterred by its difficulty, remembering her friend's faith in her resolve. Jawa during their talk asked Hyewon about when she planned to move away. Hyewon explained that Sen had already told her about the upcoming change. Although saddened Jawa hadn't told her sooner, Hyewon understood eventually it was the right thing. However, Hyewon happily shared her move was cancelled after her mother explained her father's job changed. Relieved, she celebrated staying at school, and as Jawa neared the study group, she recalled their talk. At that moment, she spotted Hanwell at the study room's door, a sight that unsettled her. Hanel was still waiting for Gam's response about joining the group. Even after repeating the question, Gam remained silent, in group, restless, fearing that his friend might accept Hanwo into the group, something he knew could be problematic. Gam, pretending not to understand, asked if the boy's name was Hanel Phi. Hanwell with sarcasm replied maybe yes, maybe no. Gam scrutinized Hanel for a few moments before giving his answer. He declared that Hanel could not join the group. Annoyed, Hanwell demanded a reason. Gam stated that the reason was the lack of determination he saw in Han's eyes, indicating that he didn't really want to join the university or the study group. Hanwell, with a sarcastic tone, praised Gim's analytical skills but said he wouldn't accept that answer without an objective justification. Faced with his persistence, Gamon replied that the objective reason was simple. Hanwell was a bad person. Sen started to worry because Gamon was clearly making up excuses simply because he didn't like the boy. Hanwell lamented, saying it was a shame since he thought he could have helped them. Before leaving, Humble smiled and teased, "Can you endure the path you've chosen?" As he said this, someone outside threw a brick through the study room window, shattering the glass. Unfortunately, the brick hit Sen, who was near the window at that moment. Jawa entered the room and quickly ran to check if Sen was okay. Gamon went to the window to understand what was happening and saw several people outside yelling. Hull explained that it was a consequence of Gamon defeating Jae Wong and Sin. He revealed that both were second-year students and that an unofficial rule existed in the engineering department. Students from different years were not supposed to compete against each other in the rankings. By breaking this rule, Gam and had caused an imbalance. Now the first-year students were increasingly determined to establish their own positions. Gam, with his unusual strength, ended up being seen as a monster. Rumors about his superior abilities spread quickly among the first students. This bothered Tiak Kong, who wanted to put an end to these rumors. Blee teased, saying that none of this would have happened if Gam had accepted him into the group. Now he would have to deal with the consequences outside. Tiak Kong was yelling, demanding that Gamon come down to face him and determine who was the strongest. Gam sarcastically replied that he would inform the teacher that Tao Kong was the strongest so the rumors would stop. Frustrated, Tao Kong ordered his men to drag Jun there, using him as bait to force Gamon to come down. Jun, desperate, screamed for them to let him go. Ta Kong revealed that Jun had declared his goal to conquer the engineering department, something Ta found absurd. To humiliate him, he began tearing up Jun's application form for the study group. Hearing this, Gamon couldn't hold back any longer. He jumped out the window before Tao Kong could completely destroy the form. Gam's action impressed Jun, who already admired him. Teo Kong was also surprised but kept provoking him, challenging Gam to prove his strength. Jun began challenging the rankings, determined to climb to the top. His talent for fighting was remarkable, leaving all onlookers in awe of his skills. Despite defeats, he always found victory, advancing steadily and sitting at 18th in rank. Longing for more triumph, he felt victory was transforming him after a life shadowed by losses. He desired every challenger to fall before him so he'd reach the summit, hoping to find him there. Still, Jun believed he must keep securing wins, for it seemed his achievements weren't sufficient. Even as he climbed the ranks, knowing another was growing stronger only pushed him harder. The chance to challenge Gamon arrived. Jun resisted but friends pressed until he submitted. Upon arrival, Gamon noticed Jun had completed the required form and examined it with interest. The document hovered as the group's leader reached for it, while Gam finished teaching Tao Khan. Frustrated, Tao accused Gam of avoiding a fair match, urging him to fight properly. Yet Gam, untouched by taunts, simply turned his back and left without a word. Tao insisted defeat came only because he had relaxed when jumping from the second floor. Even then, Gam remained calm, sitting on the floor reading Jun's form, ignoring his rival. Notes showed Jun, despite his ambition, pursued rivalry honestly and was diligent in studies. Gam's tranquility unsettled Ta, who roughly flicked him, causing Gam's glasses to fall off. Ta, annoyed, admitted he'd never encountered anyone as odd or nonchalant as Gam. He cautioned Jun to focus against the top-ranked fighter, declaring he'd punish such challengers, announcing before 3 ranked witnesses that the duel was now formally sanctioned at Yonghai. At his limit, Gamon struck Ta fiercely, proving he wouldn't permit rudeness during important moments. Onlookers could not hide their amazement at what they saw before them. One punch was enough for Tao Kong to drop onto his knees, overcome by a single strike. Unfazed, Gamon made his true purpose clear. The study group mattered more than rankings. Tao seemed to hear nothing as he fell. Witnesses instantly acknowledged Gamon's superior strength. This fight proved that even the boldest competitors wilt in the face of greatness. Only Gam seemed to fully identify with Gamon's true perspective in all this. Afterwards, the study group's leader approached Jun and verified who he was. Gam welcomed him into the group, saying nothing about being the year's top student. Jun, amazed, agreed on the spot. He admired Gam and wanted to dedicate himself to growing stronger through study. Yet upon seeing all the books and notebooks, he paused for a moment in uncertainty. Gam noticed his pause and questioned if Jun truly wished to commit to studying. Hearing Jun accept quietly, Gam opened the door and provided a stack of materials to him. Gam said they had to see Miss Hankin and needed everything prepared upon return, so Jun thought it was a probation but felt ready to try. He longed to learn from Gam and was ready to endure difficulties, even if he didn't quite get Gam's study obsession but was impressed by his fighting talent. He saw this dedication as essential for his dream of being a student skilled in combat. Powerful wind began blowing and scattered their papers. As the entrance swung wide, a man came in, searching for Gamon Yun. He identified himself as a YB White lead family envoy, here to evaluate Gam for earning the top spot. Their challenge would decide if Gamon deserved a steady place on the national team. Jun was stunned to find the rumors about top student recruiting confirmed. Hoping to protect his mentor, Jun impersonated Gamon to keep everyone out of trouble. Later, as Gamon sorrowfully started leaving, someone questioned his intended destination. Jun reached the test area and was unnerved by stern evaluators waiting inside the recruiter's car. Jun heard talk about Yonhai's reputation for incredible fighting skill. The man's speech seemed rambling, so Jun stayed quiet, remembering a classmate who once hoped to join White Lead and vowed to vanish. The student believed success meant he'd never see Jun again after parting ways. With a grin, he said Jun could never find him, seated beside the man in the car. Yet Jun felt he'd find him regardless, believing the nation was quite small. He was set on seeking Antai, so as he thought, the car went away from 3 friends walking. Only Ja glimpsed Jun in the car. Revealing this to their group caused great alarm among them. She immediately sensed danger and hurried to alert the head of their study group. Yet her companion Sen said he had gone ahead to join Jun for their study session. Disappointed, Sen arrived with 2 sodas meant for himself and Jun, only to find Jun had left. Although Jun's eyes were full of fire and he chose pineapple energy drinks for his friend, his actions made no sense. Uncertain, Sen wished he hadn't already told Miss Haining he had assured the group's 5 members. What puzzled him most was Jun beginning to answer the questions before vanishing. Damon debated checking over the answers and after a quick look saw Jun's great interest, deepening his confusion. At that instant, someone asked Gam if he wished to discover Jun's whereabouts. Turning around and with a somber gaze, he recognized that it was Gam facing him. Bewildered, he decided to question Jian YB, hoping for hints about Jun's location. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jun was moments away from a challenging challenging trial of his own. His would-be tormentors awaited in a menacing scene, showing him the harsh ordeal for permanent membership. Jun's challenge required him to face 3 imposing individuals. One who escorted explained his YB family's duty. To Jun, it became clear this was the site chosen for his upcoming test. Passage as a longtime member with the YB family rested on overcoming a straightforward test. His only mission was advancing to seize the keys to an untouched new vehicle. Wu informed Jun that while the task appeared simple, it would prove no easy feat. Retired senior members, now graduates, would oppose him fiercely, risking his own safety to try to stop him. The trial would challenge even a young student. He'd need crime skills as like Ban Jiang, 17, a petty theft expert and full member. Yuan Wuk, 17, another core group member, excelled in direct fights, a permanent in white lead. The third, 18-year-old Yubo, possessed skills in surviving and perpetrating violent attacks. Yet all doubted if Jun really deserved his top ranking, since his nervous look clashed with such status. Jun felt more desperate until told he'd win the car if victorious, that this was the fate for someone like him. Those working part-time as outcasts or those who didn't belong rarely reached that level of accomplishment. The recruiter shouted, "False hopes fill the world, but everything ends up centered on power and money." He insisted that simply studying or displaying virtues would not bring reward when wealth and influence rule. Pointing at the new car key, he insisted it was simple, just take it and victory would follow. Jun wasn't driven by the allure of a car key or any encouragement, just his search for that someone. Recognizing that person among the recruits, he dove in, convinced catching the key led to anti. His focus narrowed, fear faded, and nothing could stifle the boldness within, outnumbered or not. Confidence urged him onward, sure he belonged among the specially chosen team. Moments into the challenge, Jun was on the ground as Django teased about young high school students. He knew this was more than he could handle, enduring claims that a 4th companion was unnecessary. Defeated, Jun saw that the trio held strength far beyond common men. The strict examiner remarked he shouldn't let feelings disrupt or overshadow logic. Brandishing a metal rod, the man warned if Jun feigned superiority he'd need to face him. Jun hid his shock hearing himself called useless. The examiner's sharp gaze meant to instill fear. The man despised empty talk. For no clear cause, the merciless examiner requested the boy to turn face down. He promised Jun that in doing so, 45 unharmed. He glanced at his watch, stating the hour, 8:45 p.m., and said this test would seal their status forever. Face pressed to the floor, Jun believed he'd done as he was told. Though shamed, punishment awaited, but before a blow could land, another was felled by a punch. Caught unaware, but before a startling blow could speed. This commotion alerted the other 2 from the trio. The study group disrupted the scene. Chiwa questioned if this was the place the dangerous man haunted. Ji asked who was guiding the group, hoping he could request a favor. Meanwhile, Gamon fixated on Jun's unfinished task, puzzled by what he saw. He showed the results and revealed to Jun that he had in fact passed. Jun, seeing Gamon in person, was astounded anew by the recruitment test results revealed to him. While playing as Gam, the recruiter with the rod was surprised anew as Gam and Gab arrived inquiring if this was the test for permanent posts. They wondered if triumph meant membership, but before that, unidentified gifted students were exposed by Zhao, whose presence was unseen as she followed. Gab explained he was present only to bring Gam and find a moment to speak with White Lead's escort. Is later realized that Gam's real goal had been to rescue Jun from trouble. If the boy came there hoping to join them, Jawa insisted they should guide and awaken him to life's true path. Gum agreed quietly, understanding deep down that he must not let that come to pass. He wanted to guide the boy and shared the review he'd recently been conducting as support. Ja thought it wise not to waste such obvious intelligence, especially from someone who scored 24. Believing he didn't try to cheat and confronted the challenge bravely, she thought he had his reasons for coming. Jun Lee, seen as good-hearted, was there with his 24-point evaluation, showing that he had passed. The evaluator grew puzzled, uncertain of the boy's desires, but soon someone significant entered the scene. They appeared to be from Young High. It seemed that boy had loyal friends. Jai was afraid uncle was misbehaving. He'd grown old enough to choose a life without remorse for past decisions. Now he asked if they pictured him as some movie villain since everyone looked uneasy. Django said trying the police would be useless. It wouldn't result in anything new. Gamon cried for Jun to join him, but then the recruiter said only pain can make the law real. Feeling the metal pipe's dense weight, the boy saw Ja stunned by the pain such a thing could cause. The man said by breaking the fake leader, power could turn to money, asking if Jun felt any shame. He simply replied that genuine respect comes only through wealth. Im sensed rising danger and urged Gam to face the problem with him right away. Yet Jai cautioned that sly figures sneaked behind, aiming to catch the group off guard. Those who ambushed them struck, crashing their heads together and forcing them both down. Momentarily stunned, Jai fixed a steely gaze and said, "I've twisted an arm already," and he endured. One of the boys, ready to fight her, spoke with conviction, preparing for the coming clash. Though he aimed a left uppercut at her, she avoided it effortlessly. She struck his arm, toppling him, and said, "This is the true nature of high school fights." He fell under her stern strike as she intended to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, Tim, eager to display his abilities, grabbed a wooden bat ready to hit Gab. He wondered why Giant YB was leaving after striking without hesitation earlier. Now he felt Giant YB deserved what he got, even apologizing while boasting weapon expertise. He prepared to hurt Gam simply for being an obstacle. Gam saw his foe attack wildly, yet every blow landed with frightening force. Slightest error could prove deadly. Yet Gab realized the strikes were careless, revealing the attacker knew nothing about him. Short of this, Gam engaged without fears. Neither fighter understood the other's skills or flaws. Free from hesitation, Giant launched an uppercut to teach the offender a hard lesson. Now he could echo that earlier statement about letting the challenger share the same feeling. Giant YB proclaimed he would make his opponent understand this feeling as well. The culprit assumed such actions were typical from young high students. All that remained was finding the true top 3, ranked 1, 2, and 3. The so-called expert loudly issued a challenge. Pretending great skill, he called himself Razor UBC, stating nothing could beat true sharpness, as he was a unique, dangerous recruit. He claimed most boys froze at sharp objects in fear, but things were surprisingly different with Gamon. Following Bruce Lee's example, Gamon calmly seized Jun's test and effortlessly countered the blade. To Gamon, wisdom trumped force, and he was unafraid to defend friends using any tool or skill. The recruiter then saw Gam wisely hurl the blade far away with precise martial technique. Afterward, Gam tried to hit back with an uppercut, but the recruiter proved his skills were real. He simply caught and stopped Gam's incoming punch with ease. Addressing Gam by name, the recruiter wondered what wisdom could block a man so skilled in fighting arts. As Gamon battled Django, his friends Jamb and Jai observed the scene from afar. Events revealed Django thought Gam underestimated him and that only the boss's son could handle such children alone. Zhao realized he meant Han Woli, and the man remarked he respected the loyalty Gamon showed earlier. With that, he mimed Gamon's moves, using a metal rod to hurl him down easily. The friends who were witnessing everything now fell into hopelessness. Jai cried that the man was a ruthless thug, and even when the two tried to help Gamon, he quickly overpowered and knocked them both to the ground. He remarked that they should learn to get along since he stayed still and still bested them easily. If he didn't show them, they would never truly understand what it was to be afraid. That's why he had a fondness for the hopeless bunch from young high school. Lying down, Gamon wondered how the man found his weakness so exactly, while the man lit a cigarette, musing aloud that flaw always existed like defective products even among those with talent. He believed that being first among his peers would put him above everyone else. Nevertheless, the same man felt respect for Gamon, who waited for a chance to strike once his guard dropped. To the man's shock, Gamon struck swiftly with both feet, right and left. He did so by booting the man away, but found it pitiable and regretted acting rashly. Afterward, he saw Gamon exhale softly, looking almost at ease. Normally, no one could appear calm in that position until he discovered Gamon's intent. Gamon's aim was clear, to make the man move his foot from his wounded friend, forcing that attack. Now seeing it, the man realized Gamon made him use his right leg, thus freeing his injured friend. The man laughed at the likeness of their friendship, realizing that Gamon took the hits only to save his friend. Unspoken sorrow stained Gamon's heart as he insisted they weren't a gang, just classmates. Yet the man dismissed whether it was a study group or not, mockingly removing his jacket like a hero. Even so, Gamon thought facing this man, he could finally try his best without causing greater harm. At the police precinct, the detective grew more irritable as he dwelled on the situation. People wondered what agitated the detective, finding him far more worked up than normal. The detective was often this way, now making others double their efforts because of him. He was teased that although his name meant sloth, he kept working non-stop section after section. At Inchin's Women and Youth Division, Detective Dog Yang gathered news on Hami and wondered aloud if he was overworking after just starting this new case. Troubled high schoolers were under their purview, and his colleagues said they worked hard after that unlucky event. How could he overlook it so late at night when he still had it? The detective clarified that his focus remained on Miss Hing's case at Yusung High School. Clearly this fell to the women and juvenile vision. To trap White Lead's head Ye McPhee, all hopes rested on his son Hull Phi. The detectives talked over the case, their division and collaboration, agreeing to keep the boy with them. He could leave the department before even reaching 60 because the chief released him soon after arrival. He just offered a gentle smile and strode out, unhurried and serene. When he met the detective, the man already knew his name, which was unusual since he had just transferred. Infiltrators in the force evidently worked alongside them. The detective stayed put, finishing his cigarette and feeling tense about everything unfolding. The two now stood outside, torn about entering, yet she knew retreat was not an option for her now. He noticed the children bore the anxious look of those headed to a precinct, and judging by their uniforms, they attended the school of arrogant H. Wolf F. To catch that boy, he needed someone from White Lead's hierarchy, a knowledgeable executive. Losing one would hurt White Lead, though those executives always operated from the shadows. He pondered where such a person could be found. At that moment he fought exactly that sort. At one point Gamon Yun had a friend named Anti, who someday decided their friendship was over. Then June recalled a famous player's words, "Rivals hurt most deeply when they shed their friendly facade." Upon stopping, Anti told June he had not considered June a rival at any point during their 2-year friendship. June realized then every past moment between them was only significant to him. Everyone remained on the ground after being taken down by the crime talent scout. However, June started to regain consciousness bit by bit. Upset that he had fainted, all he recalled was going after Gam. He took a blow from a metal pipe when trying to rise, thinking himself alone, but blamed no one since they faced true mobsters. Focusing more, he saw Gamon defending him, telling the accuser not to worry over his being a mafioso. June saw Gamon positioned expertly just as a one-sided hit seemed imminent. With his strength back, June tried to help by moving under one mafioso's foot and causing his fall. Yet both tumbled, and angered by the fall, the man kicked June aside, seeing him as useless burden. Gamon quickly helped his injured friend, while the recruiter urged Gamon to abandon him, thinking a weakling irrelevant to a mafioso. It was obvious June was considered a hindrance, with nothing valuable to contribute. The boy, flustered, confessed he felt unworthy of help and feared he was only a bother. He confessed to lying and, unable to resist the lure of the car, believed it best to be left behind. Once he'd finished, he glanced at Gamon, seeking to gauge what he would do in response. Nonetheless, Gamon remained steadfast in his support for his friend from the study group. At that moment, Gamon recalled his secretive uncle, who taught martial arts and always insisted only mutual challenges in battle were fair. He also remembered discussing with his uncle how painful his punches had become, asked for guidance, and admitted that despite effort his grades showed no gain. Gamon's uncle advised a new approach. When Gamon mentioned looking for reference books, the uncle hinted at a greater force that awakens true motivation. He told Gamon at times his body moved on its own, fueled by a wish to surpass his uncle's skill. He explained the world was full of motivators, especially the drive to overtake rivals. Gamon echoed this before striking the criminal, declaring June a true challenger. June was stunned to be named as an equal since Santi had denied ever holding that belief about him. Yet it inspired Gamon to draw from a risky technique previously taught by his uncle. This move, 100 decisive punches and a concluding powerful kick called a one-sided attack, normally reigned in training excess. With it, Gamon succeeded in toppling the foe whom his friends could not prevail against. June, astonished by his friend's promise, was pleased his effort was acknowledged as rivalry by Gamon. Nearby, an eye overheard murmurs about the impressive mettle of Gamon's rival. As the study group leader straightened his glasses, 3 subdued foes lay tied. With no words, Gamon stood vigilant beside his unconscious opponent sprawled over a car's hood. Pride filled Gamon, who now believed their study group could officially begin its journey. Suddenly, the car beneath the man sped off with someone inside, knocking the person on the hood through the air. The swift-moving vehicle frightened the group as it rapidly closed in on them. June realized he'd only battled 3, meaning a 4th still inside the car had gone unnoticed throughout. As the car neared, June recognized Anti was inside, flashing a sinister smile toward the now-down Zhao. The unfolding events became deeply embarrassing for those who watched helplessly. Ganab, standing, admired the boy whose skills outstripped his own and thought being stronger years ago might have meant saving his mother. After regaining composure from the ordeal and feeling relief she was unharmed, Zhao came up and, addressing the boy as old brat, questioned his presence there. The boy admitted he wished to question a White Lee member, so he asked Gamon along, believing he could win the fight as he clearly had overcome them all, shown by the White Lee recruiter's condition. At this, Jawa eyed him with skepticism and asked him if that was truly everything he wanted. Seeing her hesitation, he inquired as to what exactly she was trying to imply. All they could hear then was the roar of a car rushing straight at the 2 young men. June was unprepared for the sudden threat posed by the swiftly approaching vehicle. His anxiety deepened the instant he realized who sat at the wheel of the car. Realizing his friend's dangerous intent and difference from his old self, he heroically shoved Gamon away from the car's deadly course. But Gamon's quick reflexes proved superior as he instantly pulled his friend back by the arm. Thus, both narrowly eluded the oncoming car, which Anti then sped off in, leaving behind screeching tires. Meanwhile, the recruiter who sought new team members remained sprawled on the cold pavement. Once the car departed, Jia shouted that the man's actions were outrageous and that endangering her friends went too far. Gan YB argued it was no bluff, the man would have truly run them over given any real chance. Indeed, harming them was the driver's true intent when he sped down on them from the road. Anti inquired if the boy genuinely wasn't tempted to become a part of their group. He insisted June's skills could secure him a place without being full-time if he wished. After hearing these words, Gamb realized the man himself did not belong to the group for real. He continued, saying June could first manage karaoke, then work the casino with major players, and that new young high recruits could prosper too. Gamon gave a firm refusal, which the man thought was bold coming from a school-aged youth. The detective came, took the boys away, unimpressed by them. Gamon stated all of them would seek college. Gab's silent face already made it clear this was not the path his heart desired. Dawa clearly didn't wish to surrender authority over her own future to anyone else. Anti recalled Gamon discussing a study group, realizing it was aimed at him, affirming he'd remember all in the Yang study group. June saw a wild new glint in Antai's eyes, understanding White Lee had twisted him this far. When Junju walked with JB, the boy inside the vehicle called him endlessly entertaining. Ironically, he'd enrolled at his mother's school, even advising after her passing that he ought to follow her example. With something as trivial as squirrels, Gam realized the man spoke to Gamb of his late mother. His mother once taught at Young High. Although provoked, Gamb seemed only devoted to his studies, not revenge. He remarked that someone might find comfort upon hearing that. Gamb was heartbroken learning they all knew, then recalled rushing hurt to his mother's side. The man alluded to the one who had taken Gamb's mother from him. With the detective and friends present, the detective observed Jawa's keen intuition. Always ahead, as the car pulled away, Zhao knew the old youth wanted pursuit despite no taxis nearby. Aiding the chase, Gamon revealed his new motorcycle and used it to hasten after the detective. Watching him speed by, a face seemed familiar. GB raced, set on catching his quarry. Yet the driver's difficult path made following hard, since he already held the advantage. Parting earlier by car, the boy saw only a shortcut as his solution now. Using this route would close their gap, but a comrade waiting in ambush knocked him off. Sanjin Bang claimed coincidence for his weight in Jay Wang's case, asking about daring to dream on a motorcycle. He told the boy he knew he was pursuing his team members. Gamon recalled taking his bike in pursuit and remembered how near he came to harming Hanwell. He sensed that the outcome here might become dire. Meanwhile, the boy was in an alley clashing with Sanjin Bang, which was unwise. Although he used reinforced punches, Sanjin Bang remained composed near a signal, attempting a call. But the call failed. His broad figure in a sleeveless shirt stood out on the street. He was trying to reach Jae Wung, worried by past events that weighed on his mind. After everything, he understood Jae Wung's fears and knew the school's memory still troubled him. Sanjin once asked about returning. Jae Wung felt exposed, other students and the pursuer still present. Jae Wung shared that his attacker's outline remained clear despite blurred sight. It was the teacher's son, now following all White lead members one by one. Jae Wung cautioned of the boy's determined eyes and noted news of Kaijin learning his lesson impacted him positively. He wondered if Hanel agreed, since the council members were practically his loyal guards. At that moment, Sanjin Bang recalled when the boy insulted Jae Wung, feeling no urge to take revenge for his friend. However, Sangin's situation was unique. He needed resolution and wanted an imminent confrontation. As he stood at a traffic light calling Jae Wung, he spotted the person who had wronged him walk past. Unleashing his anger, he chased after the boy on foot, sure of catching him, knowing where he was headed. Now the boy stared at Sanin and thought himself able to take him on without batting an eye. The wildness shone in the boy's gaze. It failed to disturb or faze Sanin Bang. Sanin watched the boy, pondering if this was the look Jae Wung once warned him about. Others may have found the crazed stare frightening, but for him, it changed nothing at all. Even as the boy tried to challenge and oppose him brashly, it would amount to nothing. Though he had fierce resolve, he couldn't match Sanjin's might, even striking his foe's stomach with a metal fist. As Sanin responded, he seized the boy's head and said eggs shatter once they fall to the ground. Sanin pulled his head, then drove his knee into it, sending the boy collapsing onto the ground. Jim sensed a sharp pressure in his jaw, recognizing Sanin's strength surpassed mere brute force. From the ground, Jian realized that Sangin bore a completely unique physicality and strength. Sanin demanded he rise quickly, urged on by haste, and aggressively pushed him up from the street. Jian, seeing trash bags nearby, acted immediately as Sanin neared, questioning his search for his mother's assailant. Sanjin mentioned it must be a dreadful memory, a story that became news yet was pure senseless violence. He remarked the woman was just 30, and explained it was from an accident caused by drunk driving. Consumed by grief, the boy hurled a trash bag at Sanjin, sending garbage flying as he shouted it wasn't chance. He asserted those at fault belonged to the group known as White Lead. Seeing the mess, Sanin asked why the boy thought throwing trash would help in this struggle. He accused him of being a panicked civilian, but in the chaos, a can lid struck toward Sangin's face. Relying on his quick instincts, Sanin avoided major harm and realized the boy used the lid to shield himself. A moment later, the boy kicked Sanjin Bang directly in the face, to his utter surprise. By acting, he only stoked the boy's anger even more than usual. After seeing the mess he made, he tried to leave on his bike and find answers, aware his foe was all strength and little wit. He noticed he was trapped when he saw his bike key was gone, likely lost in the chaos. As the bike slid out, he was swiftly grabbed by his hoodie and thrown far and fast. During all this, his phone began buzzing with new messages. Anti-text did next? Yoongo passed the test, got beat by a young high student and had to head back to SDO. After Hanwell called him over, he also said a guy on a Honda CBR 125 was tailing him and asked anyone nearby to handle it. Once he read that, he knew the boy was important to his plans. He then realized that an informant had been slipped among them, explaining how the test location leaked. Before long, witnesses called police to report that an injured boy had been carried away. The missing key lay on the ground, picked up by the boy who had risked a month working undercover. He knew it was time act, so he'd keep pretending to serve that very boy. Zhao, fond of inventing nicknames, said goodbye to Gam and called him Crazy Eyes. Just then, as Gam departed, a rider sped up begging for help. Ganab faced some trouble. The detective, quick on the scene, called for backup to catch a few from White Lead's team. Officers wanted to know if the Blade Master Boy still held permanent membership. The detective, thinking these teens were full of nerve, hurried after them. Zhao shoved him on purpose, yelling about the scent of tobacco lingering. As she watched the smell fall, she passed with a wry grin at her small triumph. Sen warned her that a scolding could come, just as the detective asked why the group lingered still. They all wanted the detective to find GB's bike, but he asked if Gam was licensed. Gam said he'd just gotten it. The detective stated things got complicated, as a gut feeling alone wouldn't permit a search. Gamon struggled to clarify, unable to mention anyone's mother with such personal weight, so he stayed silent. It felt too intimate, and Ja remarked that Gamon wasn't just a child anymore. Then the detective said the gangster's unconscious state was thanks to them, and the team agreed, scoffing that even crooks couldn't battle students. June revealed that Gam started it all. They are now foes, and Gamon led the group alone. Simply put, learning they were rivals left the detective genuinely surprised. It felt odd that a high schooler managed to overcome someone truly criminal. The detective admired the kid's courage, so Jawa even dubbed June hot sauce for his daring act. The detective realized that Ja had faced earlier doubts about her own actions. It became obvious she had misstepped, therefore Gam and Ja deserved arrest for breaking the law. Thus, they risked facing charges for overstepping lawful bounds through violence. June claimed blame for it all, but the detective insisted it should have been reported at once. The detective insisted violence is never excusable, echoing Miss Hankin, with Gamon recalling her words. Jawa urged seriousness, but the detective retorted this only mattered if authorities truly performed their duties. He didn't reveal everything, but explained declining authority caused people to lose faith in the police. Gamon recalled G's recent words. As a detective, he couldn't celebrate their actions or chastise them. He instead offered Gam his card, expressing regret over the whole situation. He asked them to contact him anytime, vowing a swift reply to their needs. He reminded them strength will fail one day and then you'll need that card's help. He suggested studying quietly. Sen felt relieved since everything ended in a police car reprimand. The detective then took a worried phone call from someone at the hospital. He wished them well, insisted all was fine, then asked about GB, learning Gab's ties to his mother. He queried if she made a study group, and said its leader once bested White Lead's member. That person had attempted to lure students from Yon High School into their group. She doubted Gamon had done it, but for now, things were settling down thanks to their new weapon. The detective noted that further probing of Hanwal Phai's history was underway. He shared that Ganom had acted heroically to help a fellow member of the study group. Miss Hankin hoped for a small change at school, which already marked a real difference now. She observed that if this spirit persisted, schools like SWN High and Incheon might also transform. Miss Hankin asked the detective to continue helping, grateful he had solved everything. The group exchanged farewells and scattered, each departing in different directions. One girl searched for chili sauce gone missing, while Sen said he must go and noticed Gamon's direction. Someone asked Sen if home was in SDO. He confirmed it, and Ya called him a 400 eccentric before goodbye. A worry for Gab troubled him. He clung to this hope. Then a motorcyclist rode up asking for help. Gan and EO were in trouble. The rider wondered why Gamon was present but felt lucky to find him there. Wanted a copy of the file. Seeing Gamon confused, the biker introduced himself as Du, recalling their last meeting at the student council. Gamon soon remembered Du as the one who had wanted a copy of the file. The boy assured him copying was not his goal and begged Gamon to help save Gab. Gamon realized the motorcycles looked familiar. The boy told him to get on, hinting at explanations ahead. Just then Gamon's phone began to ring. His mother was upset, questioned his conduct with friends, and reminded him about her concerns over his school. She said he'd pleaded to study at that school relying on his talent and set rules to avoid trouble, warning she'd transfer him if he didn't come home. Meanwhile, the boy urged a reluctant Gamon to hurry. The crisis for his friend was serious. He shouted at Gamon to act, demanding why he was hesitating. Gamon hesitated, caught between rescuing his friend and obeying his mother's wishes. Meanwhile, Jayan, tied to a chair, was surrounded by several people. They sought information on the spy, fearing it might end Jayan's hope of avenging his mother. The man in white returned, and GB pondered if following him might bring some good. At least Dongju was warned, and though embarrassed, he thought they might succeed if Gamon came. And though strategize, he unsettle thought they Gab might and reveal the succeed spy. They mocked him, joking if he felt like Detective Conan and missing the point entirely. GB considered if this would be the day he reunited with his mother, finally able to ask her who was responsible. Just then the door swung open abruptly, kicked from the other side by someone unseen. GB supposed it was Gamon, but Sanin was more curious to uncover the bold culprit. The detective insisted it couldn't be Gamon, since Gamon had to go home and study as the intruder appeared. Someone remarked they hadn't seen him for ages and grumbled that young people had lost all respect. They urged swift action, fists clenched for the coming fight, as at work, Parker's absence sparked interest after arresting a white lead member. The detective realized Gam made the right choice by avoiding the youth division's involvement. A colleague told the boss Parker's location was unknown, maybe home, while Parker was with Gamon, wrestling with guilt after the Hanwell incident. He recalled the detective only sought a modest job to afford dinner, though extra work was his domain as he was skilled at fighting. With tension rising, Sanjin and Antai both quickly made plans for an escape. Sanjin questioned fleeing from the man, warning it would look bad but insisted they keep far away from the detective regardless. That man was trouble, landing himself directly onto Hell's notorious blacklist. Sanin argued being on Han's blacklist didn't guarantee real strength, while Antai suggested Hanel's recent paranoia led to adding him. Still, his name was marked with 4 stars when it finally got included. He couldn't grasp the rating's meaning but felt sure it couldn't signify anything friendly. Sanin recalled once encountering a similar list and remembered 4 stars were exceptionally rare. Looked like this person had truly incited Humel's anger. Suddenly, Sanin recalled someone else who'd also earned those elusive 4 stars. The silver-haired man was safe for the moment, though to the detective, a spy seemed present in their midst. Suspicion lingered as Antai eyed his companion in the car with open doubt. They used loyal gangsters for protection and prepared to discuss it. Mindful driving without a license before a detective was risky. The detective grilled Jim about this and made it clear he had a low opinion of these wayward kids. Unaware the man was a detective, the boy hadn't asked how he knew his name either. The detective assumed the boy's memory failed him, a thought confirmed when officers arrived too late. Upon the detective's arrival, he found a woman laid on the ground and a boy crying for his mother's aid. The officers pitied the boy and inquired after him, as back then the detective chasing White Lead found them while patrolling Mapo Seoul. She had been wounded by something sharp, so the detective asked the boy if he saw anything, remembering him for his angry reply. Holding his hurt side and weeping, the boy questioned the detective's tardiness, saying he'd never forget it. It was hard to admit witnessing the scene, so the detective simply answered that Gam told him. He asked if he'd get thanks, but the boy only glared in silent protest, indignant. The detective said he needed to investigate and asked about the boy's current condition. The detective thought the boy shouldn't have stayed silent with police after the tragic event. He worried that the boy still carried the pain of that memory beyond the crime scene. First calling done for the details, the detective went home, where his father asked about his delay and the boy's state. He was okay, but there was something important he needed to share with his father. Meanwhile, Gamon studied at home for better grades when the detective messaged him that all was settled. He saw several group messages. Jawa made a new chat and said only June had yet to join. People suspected he'd disappeared again, but he sat home thinking about his efforts for friendship. June soon joined, thanked the group, and Detective Parker read Gam's note of gratitude for his help. He found himself wondering how Gam and the rest of their group were doing at that moment. The group appeared well, and he imagined Gam might have become a member now too. Things would be fine since he remembered Gam facing risk to help a friend as their circle grew closer. Such strong unity was possible only within the walls of their school. Gamon was glad to finally have study friends, while elsewhere someone ticked names on a list, saying recruitment would need to pause. Hanel now saw Gam as someone formidable, no longer to be underestimated. Young was meant to serve as an example of a flawed school, a prophecy that seemed realized. Only yesterday, Hull chose to start anew with Miss Hankin, who like last year had 4 stars. A week ago, 5 joined the group, as Gamon's messages showed they meant to study 3 hours daily. They were devoted, but the group still lacked an ideal system for study and cooperation. They set rules on attendance and hours spent, shared resources, yet group leadership was still a tough task. It was challenging to find a teacher to help, when suddenly Si-jin appeared, asking where he was heading and calling him over. Gamon glared, feeling as if the whole ordeal would have to be repeated from the beginning. Hae-jun on the student council stopped him daily, denying him entry for not wearing a blazer. His harassment was shameless and unchecked, making it tough to respond, especially given his power. Tardiness meant losing points. Hae-jun threatened Tom Kench if he complained, risking exam problems. Suddenly, help arrived. A girl insisted school rules allowed winter wear until May for students. Miss Hankin explained it was April 21st and questioned how he could forget a simple rule. Someone else whispered Kin could have ignored her and kept hassling him since Tom Kench backed them. He recalled her blocking a sharp object with her own body so the boy would be unharmed. He kept a secret admiration for Miss Hankin because of her courageous past actions. Gamon thanked Miss Hankin and asked about her well-being, and she replied she felt fine. He questioned her lightheartedness, noting she wasn't like the comic book teachers who act timidly. Still, he urged her to be cautious, anxious for her safety, and she recalled he'd beaten a white-leered alone. Instantly, she chided him, telling him his life mattered greatly and urging him to be attentive. She emphasized once more that resorting to violence would never resolve anything. She softly tousled his hair, praised his achievements, and encouraged more dedication in studies. She invited him to join her one weekend for a study session in the library together. Miss Hankin completed the registration for all 5 individuals in the student study group. The vice principal said, "I'll approve the activity with you leading and your aides seek funding." He asked about Hankin Lee. She reported his rehabilitation and dismissed interview requests he inquired about. He assured her the start would be hard but hoped for good results, and she pointed to a page. When he looked, the vice principal declared with certainty, "This, no matter what, is unacceptable." As June passed by, hearing raised voices, she wished the school would know peace for once. It was the vice principal berating someone, Miss Hankin, known for courage and treasured rumors. To June, Miss Hankin was inspiring, a goddess among teachers who guarded her students bravely. Seeing the door open, he quietly slipped away so his presence wouldn't attract attention. Miss Henning emerged visibly shaken, while the vice principal appeared even more aggravated. She sent Hanoi to the panel seeking his expulsion, baffled by Miss Henning's nosy nature as a temp. He believed she felt safe from being dismissed, just as a previous teacher wanted Hanoi expelled. Still, he insisted Mrs. Yungan refrain from meddling further in the situation at hand. Miss Hankin now seemed strangely driven, almost as if channeling that former teacher's will. With no one else to assist her, Miss Hankin reached out while Gam complained about practice odors. All eyes followed him as he checked his scent and quietly approached his fellow student. He commented that something in the room felt off, suspecting they were gossiping about him. Hanan replied, on the contrary, his top rank left classmates uneasy despite his studious image. His warning implied he could reshape their views by taking them to that room for discipline. The talk wasn't friendly. Gamon seemed to warn of enduring a painful lesson with a wooden board. From the outside, he didn't appear so terrible. Maybe he could challenge the gym's best student. They agreed that after Hu became serious, attending school had lost its excitement. Sen noted his grades were decent, and with finals approaching, he deserved a little break. Before the student could reach Gam, another intercepted and now lay in a heap on the floor. As a result, Miss Hankin again sought help from that person, as no options remained. Only this contact could deal with the committee, though he too clashed with Vice Principal Jel Yun. In her administrative post, Jel requested his support with the problems now growing severe. He answered bluntly that mere encouragement would not suffice in this situation. Judged by outcomes, she'd done nothing yet. He said she must prove herself before seeking aid. He quietly took note of her effort to organize a new study group for the class. Someone scolded H, saying his leader escaped to Rahab, accused of being a beggar caring for family. Ganam disliked hearing cruel words about a friend, although Sen kept him from reacting too soon. Annoyed, he asked about the speaker. C explained he was a world-class delinquent, one of the gifted. This notorious new student had only transferred at the start of February. He held the top spot both in name and skill, with 4 technical certificates to his credit. He was hailed as their hope. Miss Hanning's challenge was to raise a group student to top rank and in return receive a disciplinary board for the pupil she specified. He wondered aloud if she perceived the task as daunting. At the same time, Gamon placed a guiding hand on the disruptive, comical student nearby. Miss Hankin believed it was not difficult to lift a study group member to first place, facing now both top academics and fighting rankings. One faced Gamon, bristling at seeing anyone pretend they ruled the entire school. He asserted that winning fights wasn't everything and asked his aim while his hand rested on someone's shoulder. He stated there wasn't any official rank after all. Just a student acting responsibly, Gamon wanted an apology for calling Yawud names. The student wondered what would happen if he refused, doubting Gam would react violently. He insisted with harsh words that she was only with K-Jin for money, insinuating there were always motives. The siblings struggled in poverty with no comfort, but even as Gam's fist hovered near, he restrained himself. This move astonished his friend and those observing the heated moment. Most in the room secretly hoped for a physical fight, especially against Han, who had ties to the principal. He strode off arrogantly, declaring fear since Gam topped the fighting ranks. He scoffed at fighting ranks' value. Meanwhile, the scolded student lay on the floor as he was led to the principal. Gam observed he was baited into conflict as the principal was expected, a setup his friend wisely prevented. Gam quietly admitted he was grateful his friend stopped him. He then asked how long remained before their test began. Miss Hankin devoted herself fully to uplift the group's skills. Reunited at last, every student looked up to their teacher with admiration. Jai shared that aiming to top exercise rankings had pushed him to flourish and seek top academic rankings too. Rankings must have significance behind them. The group's first official lesson was also orientation, and the teacher opened the floor for their thoughts. Gam confidently declared he'd lead the exam results. Miss Hankin asked what that meant, recalling previous rumors. She wished someone in the group would earn a spot among the top ranks in the final exam. He sensed his ambition before any advice, cautioning him not to study in such a restless mood. First things first, they needed to examine ranks founded on February's exams. Jawa informed the teacher that it was awkward now. People should know each other a bit first. Gamon was pleased, not knowing his peers' skills yet, and saw hope for their study group. Jawa scored 42 total, 14 average, placing 180 out of 220. June 94 points, 32 average, ranking 132. He achieved 56 in total, averaging 19 per test, putting him at 162nd of the 220 students. Gamon was up next. Miss Hankin noted he had 25 points with 8 as an average, ranking 217. Gamon's low average drew sympathetic remarks. His friends said even guessing could yield 8. Even random answers couldn't save them. It truly seemed to be their lowest possible moment. Finally, Sen had 250 points in total and ranked highest among them, holding third of 220. Their respect grew as Sen was actually the school's third-ranking student. Some took offense, feeling as though Sen had not been honest about his real capabilities. The teacher clarified that the test wasn't precise, the questions and skill levels weren't obvious. With Sen the exception, it didn't reflect their potential. Sadly, huge improvement was curtained. Yanam wondered if genuine effort from all could spark an unlikely yet wonderful miracle. She reminded him sincerely, miracles aren't part of ranks, studying can't bridge so large a gap. Recalling old advice to repeat affirmations, she realized she wouldn't say such words now. Rankings depicted the truth, she added later, but this standard fit only ordinary schools. Here things stood apart. They had only 20 precious days awaiting the decisive final exam. By listening well and obeying her direction, they might still achieve what they desired. As she tidied up, the teacher reflected that her guidance had laid a clear road for them. As it wasn't a national ranking, they just needed to prepare for the school test. Success was in their hands. She explained questions could not change since she authored them. Focus began with Hongyi top in discipline. Everyone thought, leaving out Gam, that Sing Jai seemed most promising, always believing in possibility. June believed someone so smart shouldn't even be attending a regular public school. Gamon recalled the boy explaining his parents opposed his studies, likely why he was put in public school, along with his own commitment to help him concentrate academically. But what was stopping him from being able to focus on his education? Gamon decided to leave and return later, recalling that the boy felt school rankings were unimportant. Each day, his father made him labor at a construction job. His father was unmoved when told his son ranked third and could maybe earn a scholarship to college. The father's struggles with alcohol left him indifferent to his child's potential. His father argued against college, insisting that nobody would pay for such a thing. Studying mechanics seemed more practical, yet the boy wondered why his own family differed from those who cared about college futures. Group spotted the passing boy and questioned if he was Gam, whom they often called a servant. They summoned him over, claiming they wanted a conversation. They asked him to come closer when his classmate appeared, wondering if he was on his way home. He planned to walk with him, finding their routes matched. He urged her to go on ahead, but in the alley a man's crew, hearing a girl's voice, cornered them both at his signal. At the same time, Ganom seemed lost and hesitant while one student rambled beside a racing Sen. Soon after, the group intended to seize Sean to make it clear Gam was no leader nor the best. They demanded another admission that without the principal, he would falter yet again. The boy now faced sharp nose flicks in the alley, a cruel assertion of power by the top student. He ordered his gang to hold the boy while repeatedly flicking his nose until it stung. After 6 flicks, he boasted a new record and mocked the boy's weak nose. They had captured Hyun also, who begged them not to hurt her friend while her hair was pulled. The girl asked if she was the one who struck her. Now she was finally caught, which the girl had long anticipated due to her connection to Jawa. Z shouted in fear for his friend's safety, pleading for them to set her free. After one slap to her face, the girl felt content, thinking she would soon transfer, but Sen realized she still had to stay since construction was done. A week before the showdown, Ja bade farewell to Sian and headed home alone, living the other way. Since the remaining two shared a path, they chose to journey home side by side. He asked Heen why her friend continued bothering him so much. Their walk ended at Hwan's place, where they lingered, lost in friendly conversation. She used the moment to thank him for his help, but he claimed he'd done nothing worth thanks. His standing by her side at the police station meant a great deal to her. She felt she wouldn't have found the courage to speak on her own if she had gone there alone. The boy insisted Gam deserved the praise, as he was the one who caught the real culprit. He imagined that if life was a comic, he'd be the background guide, clarifying powers for the lead. However, Hwan disagreed. To her, he was brave for smashing the computer off the rooftop. She admired Zhao and Gam Gamon for their kindness but believed he was also a wonderful friend to her. C was certain she had a good heart and didn't deserve such mockery from the other girl. She wanted the stylish shoes which had been mentioned before. Han saw C's discomfort, so he told Centipede to bring the girl over and find out what made her so unique. At the same time, another boy held Sen, saying he expected a slave of Gamon to be tougher. The top scholar coldly told the boy on the ground that he could even take his girlfriend if desired. He called peers like him pitiful, and though Cian saw him as weak, he felt urged to protect her. H-Man heard the girl calling their group losers. He told C that he was great and should never feel foolish again. She managed to break free from her captor's grasp with a sharp bite. Her odd action grabbed the leader's focus. The bitten boy writhed on the ground in shock at her move. Sen decided to confront the aggressor and protect the girl, determined to try despite uncertainty. The enemy eyed him scornfully, already sure the boy was powerless, but when C told him to free her, he lifted his foot toward his face. He questioned what Conan could possibly do if he refused in disbelief at his bravery, and C was frightened. She wasn't accustomed to such situations, but the shock only grew as her friend was struck and mocked. The boy who was bitten had lost his sense of humor, turning to the gang leader for decisive action. Hammond asked the boy he just struck whether a single attack was all he imagined it took to win. The boy thought if he were like Gamon, defeating them all at once would be possible. Hammond questioned if hanging out with Gam made him think he could act so foolishly. The boy knew he was frail and no fighter, as the gang leader grabbed him, claiming to check up on him. Those were the leader's final words the boy caught, leaving him stunned, warning him not to be Gam's servant. Told he'd lingered too long and should head home, he tried leaving with the hesitant girl, but was stopped by someone playing rock, paper, scissors. Hammond revealed paper, Gamon chose scissors, making him the loser in their quick match. The boy pointed out with satisfaction that victory belonged to him. Hammond, surprised by Gamon's presence, questioned the unusual game they played. C flinched, expecting the enemy's return, but Gam defended them, explaining losers at this game earned a light forehead flick. With a flick, the boy who once acted brave now ended up sprawled helplessly on the floor. Even that simple act shocked those who were bothering his friends before. Hammond asked if the boy wanted to fight, or why he would flick his forehead like that. The boy replied he did not seek a fight, wanting only a playful match. He claimed all was only a game whether he won or lost, surprising Sen with his friend's new tactics. Hammond agreed to play and doubted Gam's sanity, saying he risked expulsion for such antics. The game quieted and the boy gave his energy to beat Gamon, still playing rock, paper, scissors. With the closed hand mistaken as open, Gam won, proposing a best-of-10 contest to decide the champion. Gam, seeing he'd lost again, readied another flick for his unlucky rival. Away from the drama, Ja joined June at the gaming cafe, charming the girls with flawless aim. She was close to winning, urging June to help by defeating the opponent. Gam faced his challenges in real life, with flicks to Hammond as real as the shots in Ja's game. The boy caught in the alley found his world spinning from the unexpected blows. His mind hazy, he already bore the ache of several well-placed flicks. Classmate from the clever bully's circle remembered Gam as the one who defeated Taum. Gamon announced the score 2-0 and reminded them, if you quit or lose, expect flicks. His wary friends urged him not to face a wild opponent, thinking rumors could solve Gam's troubles with ease. Few friends, curious and amused, wanted to record the entire incident. Acting like a leader, he knew refusing would mean defeat. Gamon's hand was poised for action. He realized that every moment would be filmed, and his friend Gam might get in deep trouble. She begged Gam to wait while the girl focused the lens, planning to share it online later. The boy saw the girl filming and clearly disapproved of her recording him. Before she could react, he had already knocked her phone away with a swift kick. He said, "I'm shy around cameras, so you shouldn't record me," his voice tense. Just one kick sent her phone hurtling into the wall, though he never touched her at all. Shocked, the girl fell down, fearing a scolding, while her friend thought capturing it all made him feel superior. He even managed to film the phone's crash into the wall, unaware he would be the next target. With another quick kick, the boy struck his hand and phone, leaving the screen shattered and the mood foul. Gam put calming hands on his shoulders, reminding him, "I warned you." Cameras make him tense. Feeling the heavy grip on his shoulders, he understood how stalwart Kong once lost to Gam in a single move. Getting a close look at Gam made him think the wild tales might not be quite so far-fetched after all. He warned them that as they spoke and tried to appease the boy, Hammond was slipping away unnoticed. Hammond, feeling betrayed, chose escape, realizing it wasn't over while his friends watched in disbelief. Gam then informed them that there were still 7 more rounds remaining to be played. He asked if anyone else wanted to step in and take Han's place in the game that remained. Together, it was meant to be a team sport, yet each bailed out together, denying any teamwork out of concern for Sen. Gam checked if he was all right, and C explained that even as underdogs, they truly had won. No one knew that. Tired of being second, C kept his head low when called on and walked off without looking up. He apologized as he left while Gamon sought answers. At home, his father shouted and finally struck his face. His father raged, saying saying C ignored his wishes to work construction and instead hoped for college life. He wondered aloud if C cared to earn anything or fix the debts, always linking them to what his mother left behind. He also noted C's fists were clenched tightly. He then asked if C meant to fight him, but when he tried to strike, C caught his arm in silence. Sen questioned his father, asking if he believed Sen didn't care about money. He insisted the debt was not his, yet he promised to settle it after graduating first. His father said that finding work after school was best. Sen always debated like his mother. Meanwhile, chaos filled the kitchen with scattered unwashed dishes. Sean realized his father kept blaming his mother unfairly due to the debt she left. He pointed out that before she was his mother, she was once his father's wife. As Sen walked away, his father asked if he really believed he could escape the house. Sen realized his father spoke the truth. He had nowhere else yet couldn't bear to stay there. Just as he stepped outside, Gamon saw him and was surprised Sen had actually left home. Gamon warned him leaving wasn't wise, as now they had only 40 minutes remaining. C, puzzled, asked G why he was there. G admitted to being worried and mentioned knowing about the difficult father situation. Sen replied that regardless, G would never truly grasp his perspective. With his back turned, C said he was just cooling off and G offered his house, sharing it was nearby. Conan paused and questioned Gamon's meaning. Gamon implied he knew C wasn't going back, gently resting his hands on C's shoulders. Gamon shared that because they were alike, he could sincerely relate. Sen inquired further, and Gamon answered he would know the truth if he went along. Smiling, Gamon urged him to come home with him and promised he'd understand, insisting they hurry. Passing by without drawing attention, Antai was absorbed in his phone. The teacher was once the target, but now focus shifted to the bespectacled boy. Annoyed that he had spent most of his break tracking the boy, Antai considered ruining his house for revenge. In an apartment, a boy cheered about a game until his sister interrupted, objecting to the commotion. She barged in to scold her brother, but he wanted nothing to do with her complaints. To retaliate, she mocked whether he'd painted a 1 on his forehead just for being top-ranked. Hemin chose to call Nan, even though such contact was wholly unexpected. Consequently, the boy was left wondering why the school's star was actually calling him. It was straightforward. Hemin asked for something odd. Sun or Moon Path chose Moon, knowing it required a cost beyond money. After he agreed, Minan, son of Yanai's head and White Leard's chief, granted him a name. The name given was Gamon Yun, and Minan assured him not to worry as he'd send someone his way. With Minan talking to Hammon over the phone, Hanel slipped in and quietly listened to all they said. Hanel asked why Minan was still there, calling him annoying, but Minan said it was just a pastime and planned to send Antai after a long wait. A new member had joined, drawing his curiosity to see what might unfold from their arrival. Drawing near, Hel told Minan that they seemed quite well suited as a pair. Minan asked him to step back as he found it awkward and claimed they'd never truly be a match. Hanel, curious about both Antai and the artist, explained the singer now served under Hano, prompting his move. Passing by them, Antai managed to overhear each word of their ongoing discussion. When Gam asked where the boy would sleep at such a late hour, Gam offered his mother's house, reminding they had just 30 minutes left. Hurrying could get them there in time, but as the bus was slow, a faster taxi seemed their only option. Sen observed the taxi would be more than 10,000,001, and Gamon said it was fine as he was heading home anyway. Hearing this, C remembered his father nudging him to earn, which saddened him as nothing seemed to change. He pointed out that he and Gamon belonged to different worlds and Gamon couldn't really understand, yet Gamon wondered why his friend acted that way. Sen joked that it was odd, considering that everything happened over a sum as small as 101. He promised he'd try to manage alone, and told his friend to go home instead of relying on him forever. Gamon said it wasn't a trouble to support Sen, since helping is what friends are there for. His friend knew Gamon's aid had been reliable in the past and felt genuinely thankful for it. He only felt low, realizing he couldn't succeed on his own neither at home nor in school. Sen told Gamon he might look like he was overreacting, but none of that mattered, just let him be. Gamon glanced at the time, knowing there were just 25 minutes left before it was too late. If Sen wanted to reach by 10:00, a taxi was the only way, though he would still cut it close. He also knew that C's mother threatened to transfer him if there were more problems at school. Gamon still thought perhaps letting his friend go on his own was for the best. Meanwhile, his companion strolled through the streets, realizing it was already 10 o'clock. He recalled the school opened at 7:00 a.m., leaving him 9 hours uncertain of where to go. Unsure if the subway was wise or if a net cafe was too costly, both choices made him uneasy. Turning back meant facing his father's anger again, so, chancing discomfort, he wouldn't return. He wanted to prove reliability, but while reflecting, noticed a group and became cautious at the sight. He heard his friend's name as an impatient man blamed others for losing sight of him. Failure here would doom H's mission, nothing could be allowed to go awry. Determined to destroy obstacles, C realized Hanwell's group aimed to find and ruin his friend's home. Sen wished to warn Gamon of his shadowy pursuers but was spotted, assumed non-threatening. With Gamon's ally identified, they only needed someone to give up his address and Sen bolted. Hearing trouble, Antai inquired, and the lackey replied he'd spotted Gam's companion nearby. Confident, Antai shouted for them to seize the boy, convinced determination would lead the way. He vanished from sight, baffling them since he had just been at the street's corner before. Sen showed his knack for concealment, settling anxiously in a small, tranquil hiding space. He wondered what about Gamon attracted such pursuit and regretted his earlier stubbornness. He feared discovery as his follower approached, asking why his fleeing had left him exhausted. He insisted his only aim was to ask Sen for an address. There was no sense in fleeing. Feeling irritable and heated, he would use Sen as relief. He believed a punishment would make him talk, while Sen dreaded repeating past ordeals. He'd suffered enough, flicks in shadows and a bruise from his father clouded his mind. Near tears from wounds and pressure, his phone buzzed softly, unnoticed by his prepared assailant. The pursuer challenged Sen, asking if he truly believed he could stand against him. Sen dodged by surprise, the pursuer assuming luck as Sen declared a phone call. Suspicious, the man demanded to know the person on the call. Voice on the line ordered him to pocket his phone and correct his stance right away. Sen inquired if he might see him and wondered if he was still home or had gone out. The reply confirmed he could see him as he stood atop a roof, phone pressed to his ear. From this high vantage point, he could view the whole scene and extend help to his companion. He told Conan to rise, make fists step forward, though Conan doubted he could do it at all. Gamma questioned if he really wanted to win, telling him surrendering was not an option. He reassured him he needn't worry, declaring he wouldn't be saved this time. All he had to do was obey, and he could even beat the towering figure before him. Gamon was headed home but soon understood his journey couldn't and wouldn't go on. He told the taxi to turn around, the driver pondering why he'd spend his money this way. The return revealed it was already 10 p.m., which spelled inevitable trouble at home. Nevertheless, his friend's troubling face made leaving him behind utterly impossible. He remembered that same look. His friend had always worn it when distressed. To be without anyone to trust was bad, and now things clearly weren't improving. It wouldn't be easy to relate these happenings to his mother later on. Later, Ganom heard shouts to catch Sen and saw his friend running, seeking a hiding spot. Spotting his face, he understood the danger, watching as the others chased after him confidently. Gamon knew not why they chased him, though he was thankful he'd come back, resisting the urge to act due to their last talk. His friend yearned to break free from loser's fate, craving that elusive feeling of triumph. This time he wouldn't intervene directly, he'd guide instead. Sen's rival boasted about their gap in strength but saw his changed stance. The opponent tried to make C and C reality, unable to pull him from his phone call. Abruptly, Gamon urged him to duck, repeating his warning in an increasingly urgent tone. Sen did so, dodging the swipe and finally understanding Gamon was really watching him. He hadn't left for home. His friend assured him winning was possible by obeying instructions completely. Gamon first told him to speak no more and warned him to keep his feelings hidden. Now they'd truly start. Knowing Sen was already beaten in body and experience, Gamon accepted that fact relentlessly. He needed to instill doubt and teach defense, knowing his rival shared the same instinct. Gripping his fist, he pictured a wall to his left and punched at it forcefully. He was pressed for time and had to take action without delay. With the wall in mind, Sen copied the movement for the first time, both surprised by his actions. The directions shifted, and he listened closely for what came next. Now tasked to sidestep left, Sen dodged and angled his foot perfectly, causing his rival to stumble. Unaware of the result until the man fell, Sen felt a swell of pride over his actions. He realized Gamon's advice favored simplicity, yet Sen still evaded and overcame his opponent. Meanwhile, Gamon's own troubles worsened. His absence worried his mother, who questioned his companion. He had to disregard her concern. Still, Gamon urged Sen to use the accidental fall as an advantage. He encouraged Sen to provoke his adversary, knowing anger would leave him exposed and easy to outmaneuver. This would also throw his adversary into uncertainty. In that agitation, gaps would open in the rival's defense. Unable to land a strike, frustration would have his foe questioning how he failed yet again. At that moment, Sen would slip past him once more, waiting for an ideal chance. Revealed itself just when needed most. The opening emerged at exactly the right instant. After dodging, it was now Sen's turn to strike back and finish it. Gamon knew asking for a punch or knockout would be unfair since Sen lacked training and strength. A single hit would mean defeat, so victory required pouring everything into an unexpected move, a headbutt. No one, neither Sen nor the other, would predict the boldness of that strike. No need for sensation. Even a plain win offered solace and granted his friend much-needed comfort. He didn't chase perfection, simply achieving a small win would deeply satisfy him within. As he reached his house, lean and tired at the door, Gamon hoped all would be well and asked how victory felt, but Sen wondered if their fathers linked their bond. Before the words could come, Gamon's mother suddenly appeared before them. Her displeasure was clear. She wore the look of someone weary with a wayward child. Gamon searched for a reason for his lateness, but his friend just greeted her courteously. When Sen said he was Gamon's classmate, his dirty clothes caught her eye, so she struck her son and asked sharply if he thought she separated from his father only to see him like this. As Gamon endured the slap, memories surfaced of his friend being struck by his father earlier. He noticed the clear similarities between both moments and how familiar it all seemed. His mother declared she cared nothing about the study group, and she insisted on moving him to a new school. Though Gan was anxious, uncertain about being with Sen returned home and Hamel relayed all details to Antai. Antai was content as Hamel had only watched, not intervened, and Hull unveiled they had tracked the boys to a luxurious property suggesting wealth. Their target's wealth was meaningless to them, for they intended to ruin it all. Sudden flashlight illuminated their faces. It was the building's vigilant security guard. The guard soon appeared, swiftly sending them away to ensure the premises stayed safe. Meanwhile, Gamon and Sen in the apartment had already bathed and changed into fresh attire. Sensing the heavy silence, Sen quietly asked Gamon if he felt alright or needed to talk about recent events. Sen noted perhaps visiting Gamon's home had been unwise, as his mother talked about her divorce. Without warning, his mother dismissed the study group and scolded Gamon in front of his friend, repeating her warnings. He realized she might think he'd gotten into a fight and felt he must make amends, knowing she wanted answers about his after-school activities. He explained that he had been with C, the top student, guessing his mother would be unimpressed. Sen tried putting things right to Gamon's mother, clarifying that he ranked third, a detail he imagined might win her approval. But she replied indifferently. Upon learning Sen ranked third of 220, she answered ambiguously, saying it didn't matter. C felt foolish and speechless, especially as Gamon's mother dismissed grades, school, and even disliked the study group altogether. Gam realized his mother was truly unusual as Sen admired his lovely home, awed by the apartment and elevator. Gam apologized for the trouble caused, sensing Conan felt awkward visiting his family environment. Sadly, Gamon hoped Conan would remain in the study group, and Conan wondered if the wish stemmed from talks of transferring. Conan doubted she'd act, but Gamon was sure of his mother. If she promised, she always saw it through. Cian observed that moving schools was complex, but Gam confirmed his mother's approach was different. When his mother said prepare, she meant it, and Sen remarked on her stubbornness, which Gamon shared, recalling the divorce. She told him directly about the divorce and moving, advising him to prepare himself inside. She told him not to worry, promising to raise him alone, and said good character mattered more than a degree. Hugging him, she comforted him, saying academic achievement wasn't all that life offered. She emphasized she'd rather see him become a kind person than simply get good grades and a diploma. His friend wondered if he realized her sensitivity about this and suggested he should have arrived earlier. She entered quickly, told him to be quiet and sleep, gave him a school list, and his friend realized Miss Hankin was his former tutor. He thought it was interesting and couldn't see any reason for her to keep such a thing secret. He added that he hadn't told his mother either, finding it unimportant to mention. Unable to sleep, C asked his friend why ranking seemed so important to everyone. He admitted that few parents dismiss school ranks, and they didn't even seem short on money. He asked if his friend had his own dream, but the friend avoided it, choosing rest instead. Next day, his friend lingered near the office door, and all group members also waited by drawn curtains. Though they couldn't see inside, things progressed and Heen feared the study leader would be moved. Jawa remarked that if they'd stayed together at the cafe, maybe none of this would have occurred. Jun found it hard to accept and claimed it would strengthen him, but C wasn't sure about the outcome yet. The list showed only reputable schools free from scandals, but the transfer would be slow unless the principal agreed, in which case things would resolve swiftly. That's why early that morning he went to the principal, pleading for his friend not to be transferred. He explained that the school would lose its brightest promise if they let him move away. Ja thought his courage was admirable, though doubted it would have any dramatic effect. Yet the principal wouldn't agree, leaving his mother in disbelief over the lack of permission. It seemed C's scheme, however improbable, was showing glimmers of working progress. They hoped to remain united, but his mother left the office furious, dashing such hopes. After leaving the office, she calmly said the transfer being denied wouldn't be a big obstacle. Instead, she planned to move to Seoul. This shocked everyone as his sudden departure left them at a loss. As hope faded, Miss Hankin suddenly returned to the school, leaving everyone surprised. When Gamon chose Yoongai, he doubted the environment shaped people, though his mother struggled to see any reason for his decision despite his insistence it was his own. He claimed he'd achieve better grades at this school and promised to pursue college seriously. At present, the study group worked to devise a way to turn things around for him. Cian believed that because Gam's mother was so firm, interfering could worsen events. Therefore, someone trustworthy like Miss Hankin was needed. As she entered the school, Gam and his mother passed squabbling students in the hallway. His mother watched everything, and her judgment of the school grew poorer every minute. Gam protested he'd finally accomplished his goal of creating a study group, but she told him his deeds, good or bad, didn't matter. In his short time there, he was already in 3 altercations, with teachers unable to end them. Constant smell of tobacco lingered in the corridors. He tried convincing his mother the school wasn't always this chaotic, perhaps it was simply an unfortunate day, arguing that many students were still admirable. She dismissed his rationalizations and was especially unmoved when a chair crashed through a window. Worried, he checked if she was hurt since it nearly hit her. She declared the place was now far from a school and stated they'd relocate the following day. Instructing him to start packing, Gamon was shocked that his plans had unraveled so suddenly. He truly did not wish for reality to end up this way. Miss Hankin approached the supervisor, inquiring about the vice principal's whereabouts. She learned he'd just come back from the Department of Education and expressed her need to meet with him. Unfortunately, he was hesitant to meet since disorder reigned and he was continually busy managing school fights. He questioned her about what had become of the spectacled boy from her class. Suddenly, every study group member arrived, eager to speak with Miss Hankin. Yet all of them spoke over one another, preventing her from grasping their concerns. Some asked why she hadn't responded to their many messages. She wanted clarity about the situation, discovering it centered on Gam and the cancelled course slated for next month. Nonetheless, Gam's transfer quickly became news, with Min and Ma discussing it with Hamama. They shifted their strategy, deciding it was wasteful to challenge him since he was already leaving and they'd never confronted him directly. His transfer seemed unjust yet would make claiming Class 1-4 feel less burdensome without his presence. Soon, they understood it wasn't just about facing him, but ensuring he was removed from the school completely. They found the monster's weak spot fascinating. It was his mother. Gam argued with her outside, resisting her insistence he get in the car since she'd already spoken to the principal. Desperate and thoughtless, he shouted at his mother, declaring he didn't want to switch schools. He told her with his current rank and skills, he had a future there. If he transferred, he'd miss the grades needed for college. His mother wondered if this was all because of his father. She had already insisted graduation wasn't necessary for him. This time, she let him attend, certain no father could beat his son but regretted the sacrifices she'd made every day so he could go to that school. And because of that now she refused to relent. He checked if he truly understood her feelings. Just as he found scholarly friends, his mother urged him into the car, asking him to abandon his hopes. Ms. Hankin had equipped him with special exam strategies, but suddenly he had to change schools. The sight of his mother in tears was what pained him more than anything. Ms. Hankin and Sen reached the parking lot only to discover they'd already gone, assuming his transfer was settled against his will. The teacher was stunned as so many more lessons remained untaught. When the others arrived, they realized he was truly gone. All eyes turned to Ms. Hankin, hoping her inspiration could reverse the situation. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't invent a solution. Sen sighed, convinced there was no choice. As she knew Gam's mother, she insisted her mind was made up. Jawa stated that, even if their hands were tied, the group couldn't simply give up hope. He promised never to surrender, declaring he'd use his good grades earned thanks to Ms. Hankin to push forward. Then Ms. Hankin remembered cheering on Gam during tutoring, urging him to believe in his abilities. Ms. Hankin soon gathered the groups to start creating a strategy of their own. Yet their idea could only work if everyone joined in. The challenge was great, but they pressed on, carrying out their rescue plan for Gamon with no turning back. Hammond, eavesdropping, realized Gamon would soon disappear if left alone and called for help. Unable to accept things as they were, he insisted someone must stop the boy, deciding the frog must vanish. Ta Kong and his biker crew prepared to do anything it took to eliminate Gamma as an obstacle. They sought to bring harmony back to Yanai. At the same time, Miss Hankin and the study circle gave chase in a car but doubted they could ever close the gap to Gamon. He was already so far ahead. With sorrow, the child departed at his mother's side, leaving behind his hopes.